pitching it. He does to Cook. Oh, he reaches across. Touchdown, Buffalo.
Who should we get the ball to?
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
First and goal. Holmes still has it. To the 5. And in for the touchdown. And his worst pass of the night is on the spike attempt.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Barkley, a little shovel, looking for an edge, gets it. Saquon Barkley, first down. Barkley, oh! Saquon, touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
First to throw, near side, lets it rip. Brown, touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Design run, Hurts, delay, Hurts, in, touchdown, Eagles.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go, 365 Sports on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you've had a really good day. We are inside the studio, and we'll be joined a little bit later in about an hour or so by Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades. It has been forever since we had him on this show and forever since we had him in the studio. Also, Ross Tucker, NFL podcast. He works for Westwood One, CBS Sports, and others. He'll join us today. Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network, as well as what we have. If you haven't already, we appreciate it right off the top to hit the like button. And then also subscribe if you haven't done so already. So one of the questions, oh, by the way, so I had physical therapy today on my hip. I had those shots in my lower back about 2 weeks ago. So I've always, like, physical therapy to me is like boring, tedious, and it just, I'm not sure. I probably should give it more time. I go in there today. Young man, Mason. He goes, he starts talking about what they want to look at. He's seen the MRIs and all that other stuff. I said, so I don't know. I just said, so where are you from? Missouri. Oh, that's cool. He goes, you know Mack Rhoades? It's his son-in-law. It's his son-in-law, Mack Rhoades' son-in-law, who's my physical therapist. So I asked him, I said, so give me some good juice on him. He's not going to do that. But he said he goes out to that place that Mack has. It's out west. Where he likes to relax sometimes. And we talked about how those one summer after another, where he never had a chance to relax because of all hell breaking loose in college football. So that was a little bit interesting for me today. All right, so Chris Ash, Paul, Craig, Notre Dame is now where he is, set to hire him. He's been at Texas, among some other places first, and at Rutgers too.
Yeah, he was the head coach at Rutgers. He's got a good record as a defensive coordinator, now taking over for Al Golden, who's with the Bengals. A nice, interesting hire here for Notre Dame as they try to keep it up. But, you know, whenever you have success, people come for your coaches, right? So they've lost their defensive coordinator and they lost their general manager.
Yep,
which is now a big deal in college football, so in college basketball, all across. So now they've got to fill that general manager spot after Chad Bowden left. But I think Chris Ash, really great choice. He's from kind of that Al Golden, the very similar defensive scheme. Really good defensive coordinator for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're familiar with him because he was at Texas once upon a time under Tom Herman a while back now at this point, but seemed to be, from all I could gather, a pretty well-accepted hire. Mike Mickens ends up staying on with Notre Dame as well as a result of just the totality of the moves they've made and this move here. So I feel like that's been portrayed and thought of and talked about as a real win-win for Notre Dame, and that Ash has a lot of similarities to Al Golden. That should make this not so much of a dramatic or topsy-turvy type of transition, no dramatic overhaul, but a guy who's similar and should make this a pretty seamless transition, hopefully if you're Marcus Freeman and company, but a guy who was in the NFL most recently, and you did mention the Rutgers stint. That did not go very well, but Rutgers was not in a great place at that time, and quite frankly, we've seen basically one guy who's gone there and won and been successful, and so I don't hold that against him in terms of being successful as the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. He's not coming in to be the head coach, but he has had some success as a defensive coordinator, so that you can, I guess, fall back on in terms of, what he has done if you're wanting to point at those types of things. And so, yeah, I think as a DC and with Mickens and obviously what Marcus Freeman's got cooking there, it seems like it's a pretty solid hire, all things considered.
All right, also Graham Harrell, he joined us. It's been a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I think about a couple of weeks ago, maybe even today or tomorrow, he was named to the College Football Hall of Fame, the former Texas Tech great, among the greatest yardage, touchdowns, all of that, played under Mike Leach, had a great segment with him, and he was blown away about being in the selected to be a part of the College Football Hall of Fame. And then about 2 to 3, 4 days after that, there was a story by a writer for Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine that he was going to be named the offensive coordinator at Abilene Christian. Kind of got some feedback that was not yet official. Well, now it is. He is going to get the job as offensive coordinator at ACU. Graham Harrell, the Hall of Famer, not far from where he played in Lubbock and Abilene.
Yeah, that should be fun to watch. I think that this would be a good. He's not been able to really get ahead of steam going anywhere, right? He's been at West Virginia, he's been at USC, he was at Purdue, so he's been all these places for a very short amount of time. If he can just keep his boots on the ground in Abilene for a couple years, get that offense going how I think he can, and really get in a rhythm. I think that's part of the hard thing about being a young coach, a coach at all, but especially a young coach who's trying to establish, what your reputation is, what kind of offense you have. If you're constantly kind of hopping around and you're not anywhere for more than a couple years, you need that place where you are for 2-3 years where you can say oh man, look at this, year over year, 40 points a game, 38 points a game. This is what they're doing. This is their yardage. This is what their quarterbacks are doing. So I think this is a nice move for him.
Yeah, he's a guy who's very much been on a roller coaster these last few years in terms of just moving around. And so I think, at this point, and having talked to him a couple weeks ago and not having a job at that time, you're just happy for the opportunity. I do think it's a symbolic sort of roller coaster that he's been on that's not like the typical, a guy just starts and he goes up and up and up and up, and then he's the head coach, and then that's all there is, and then you're a head coach. He's been more up and down, and so much so that it's got to be kind of whiplash almost. Just a few years ago, you're there in Southern California in Los Angeles, and you're running the show for USC, right? And then here you are a few years later, and you're at Abilene Christian. It's just that's the life of a coach and how it works out. But I know for Graham, he's got his eye on being a head coach one day and getting back to big jobs, but there's a lot of familiarity there with ACU. He's got a lot of family connections. His mother went there. His father played there. His brother played there. So he knows Abilene and he knows ACU very well, and maybe that all ties in a fortuitous way to where that's the job that helps him get back on the path to to maybe bigger jobs in the future. But right now, I would imagine he's and his family just very happy to be back in a coaching office and getting back to work. So, and also back in the state of Texas. So I guess he'll have to leave that lake house in Tyler and head west, but I'm sure he's happy to do that. So it seems like a great hire for ACU as well. I mean, shoot, I don't think they have to sell that one very hard. So yeah, congratulations to him and best of luck, and hope he has a lot of success.
Think about this. So you are on the trajectory up where you are, right? USC, et cetera. And then all of a sudden, the Purdue thing doesn't go well. The Purdue coach also fired at the end of the year, Walters, and then you're starting to basically wonder where you're going to coach again. And there were even some high school programs, of course, interested. Hey, we have a landing spot for you, and then the opportunity at Abilene Christian to get back, as you said, Craig, into the state of Texas, where all the parents, grandparents, etc., are around and not that far away.
He was at USC, and then basically Lincoln Riley gets hired, and they come rolling in, and then just almost like freeze out the previous regime that didn't know what they were in for. And, you probably saw the writing on the wall when Clay Helton gets fired that you're probably not going to have a job, but I don't know that Lincoln Riley also swooped in and handled that the best for the guys that were kind of in uncertainty. So you got dealt that blow and kind of frozen out there. And then don't forget, he was at West Virginia.
Yeah.
He went to West Virginia for a year and then, moved on to Purdue. And that was just a mess because he got scapegoated. And clearly Ryan Walters was not the man for that job. Purdue did not waste any time in saying, yep, that was a mistake, let's move on. But first, they sacrificed Graham Harrell at the beginning of the season to try to, this was the issue. And then it turns out, based on the way Purdue played the rest of the year, no, the whole thing was an issue, and that's why they've now moved on to Barry Odom. That's Graham the last few years, USC, West Virginia, Purdue, and now here's Abilene Christian. So good luck to him, and hope, again, like I said, that they win a lot of games.
So one of the things about what Texas, with what they have, with what they recruit, with the high school players, and what they also do, and they will add much more to from the transfer portal, is their depth chart is pretty good. But, you lose who you lost it after the 23 season, semifinals, and then at the end of the last year, semifinals, with losing what will be 15 to 18 players drafted and maybe 20 or so more that are in the NFL included. So you just go pick and choose. Hero Canoe, Ohio State. Now, 6'4", 315, which is about the size of most of all of their defensive linemen. They have had a run on that, but they even did back when they were not really winning as much. They've always been able to have some dudes inside, some, of course, better than others. When you lose Murphy and Sweat and your defense was just as good, that's the kind of depth that you have, the kind of talent. He hadn't done much. One reason why he's also looking elsewhere, 123 snaps last season in 3 years, 14 tackles and a sack. So he gets an opportunity, big body inside, which you never have enough of the big defensive linemen, and they get Canoe to come over and be a part of their roster starting for 2025.
Yeah, they lost a couple of younger defensive tackles to the portal. So getting a younger one back, a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, but still, I think they're proven that they can coach them up pretty well. So if I was leaving one place, and of course they'll have a different defensive coordinator now at Ohio State, and going to a place where I was like, well, who's got the most recent success with defensive tackles? I'd like, well, it's probably Texas, because they are just knocking people in the dirt all the time. So probably a pretty good choice for him. Cool name, though, too.
Yeah, like you said, not a lot of production there, but he has the size, which is something that you can't just create out of thin air. So, 6'5", 300-plus pounder definitely adds some meat to the front of your defense, which they do, as you pointed out, need to kind of reload because of some of the guys are losing to the NFL, transfer portal and whatnot. So, that seems to be an issue of an area of need that they've now addressed a little bit and will probably continue to address, I would imagine. Haven't looked into their off-season synopsis, and I don't follow their boards, but I would think that big guys are right there at the top of the list, and it's just a matter of, on paper, looks like a good pickup, although a big question mark because of the lack of production. There are obviously traits that you like and that Texas liked, and so it's just a matter of what kind of transfer does he turn out to be. Is he a guy who comes in and makes a huge splash, or he's one of those guys you kind of forget that you even brought in to begin with? And I think Texas and everybody who's dabbled in the transfer portal has had their fair share of both guys, right? Guys who come in and don't end up really making a lot of noise, and then there's others that come in and they are stars for you. So we'll see what he is, but it looks like a great potential pickup, and obviously, like I said, an area of need. So, good for Texas.
And has, 2 years left, not just the upcoming year, but has 2 years to play. Just a 6'4", 315. Again, you take guys when they're talented or not, and a tremendous body. Their defensive line, how many times last year did even Georgia, until that one huge touchdown that won the game, that kind of put the game out of reach in Austin, people didn't run on them inside. Arizona State started to do that a little bit better in that semifinal game, but no question about it that they have some dudes up front, and now they add a big body from Ohio State.
Kwiatkowski knows what he's doing. They've got an excellent defense, and so I'm sure that he's a great player based on them bringing him in. So, yeah, just a matter of him maximizing it and them maximizing him. And so long as he's all in, then I think he'll end up being a great player because they know what they're looking for and they know how to develop guys.
So this was yesterday with Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, and when Ross writes a story, it is a story. I have it in front of me. I printed it out. 137-page response to the NCAA obtained by Yahoo Sports. This is about Michigan intending to fight allegations in the Conor Stallion scheme, accusing the NCAA of overreaching, defending their head coach in Sharon Moore. Deleted text reveals all of this. I kind of have enjoyed that this has not been on it just hasn't been much of a story. It doesn't mean it hasn't been there, but this is now going to be apparently back front and center. Deleted text and also any kind of email. Aren't those still available?
Yes.
Aren't those things?
People are freaking morons
Yeah.
that think that you just, hey, I'm going to delete your text. You can't get it anymore. It's like, no, you can.
Especially
unless
if it's on a university phone.
Well, the only way to go around that is to go get burner phones and something along those lines, which that would clearly be much shadier if you were doing that. So I don't know if Sharon Moore in particular, who admitted to deleting multiple texts, most of them, if not all of them, involving Conor Stallions, according to the report. He even says in Michigan's response, so I deleted all the information, all Conor, on my personal phone, and it wasn't to hide anything. It was just that I was just extremely angry of, the type of person that would do that to this program and these kids. I mean, I had to use the mute button. Kiss my ass, man. That is such bullcrap. And look, I don't care about Michigan winning a national title. It doesn't affect me. I like Sharon Moore based on what I know, but I don't like liars. And, dude, you're lying. You're absolutely lying. And, look, every college coach lies. I don't trust any of them. I wouldn't ever trust any of them because they all lie for their own benefit. But you're lying. We all know you're lying. We know you're lying, and yet there's nothing that really anybody can do about it. And Michigan fans are obviously going to just say, I'm going to turn the other way because we got what we wanted, and they don't really care. But they would be losing their minds if this was Ohio State and Conor Stallions. And so all of that just makes for a lot of back and forth. But bottom line is, clearly there was shady-s going on. Clearly Sharon Moore was involved in the shady thing to some degree. Will it pop them? Probably not. But, dude, what a lame-ass excuse, and be better than that. Come on now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole time that these coaches pretended like they didn't know what was going on, are they really expected to be like, this kid's just damn good? He's just good. He sits in a room and he watches the film and he knows he's good. We're not going to give him a raise or anything like that. And he's if he was that good, why is he not a higher on the staff? That was silly. Now I do think that there's a middle ground on everything, right? Of what this is. Okay, it's probably not quite as bad as everybody, makes it out to be. It's not like in the Deflategate Nothing Burger story, which that was Deflategate. But it is something that was not good, and it was shady. So just do something about it. Punish Michigan in some sort of way that makes them sting a little bit. Create rules that help stop it, and move on.
But see, that's what nobody does anymore. That's not the playbook. The playbook is to say, they're the bad guy, and they're out to get me because they don't believe, and to play that type of a game. We see it in politics constantly. Real information comes out, and then one side says, that's just them trying to get us, and they hate you, and then the other side does the same thing, and it never goes anywhere, and nothing ever gets done. And so, yeah, if you're Sharon Moore, Michigan, it's just, that's just Ohio State fans out to get us. Don't worry about it. Or they're just all jealous because we won the national title. And it's like, no, I'm sitting here as a completely partial observer going, dude, you're totally lying about the text messages. You are absolutely lying about not lying that you didn't have them because you admitted to that, but that it was – you were angry at the report, so you decided to just in that moment, on that very day, to delete all those text messages. I don't buy that. I also, though, am confused because I would think that he's a smart man that understands that deleting text messages doesn't mean that they're gone for forever. So I'm kind of at a crossroads there and giving him the benefit of the doubt. But, yeah, I saw that and I just rolled my eyes because however you feel about the story, I mean, you're not fooling me with the whole I was angry, so I deleted all my texts. I mean, come on, was this a 14-year-old breaking up with his girlfriend? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, the quote is, I deleted all the information, all Conor on my personal phone, and it wasn't to try to hide anything. It was just that I was extremely angry of, the type of person that would do that to this program and these kids. So is he throwing Stallions under the bus? Does Stallions have information that would then also accuse or show some things with Sharon Moore?
Oh, yeah, like he's going to put that out if he did? He's Mr. Michigan. What are you talking about?
No, he's not. So, and it's, okay, so speaking of this, I don't know if this has any, I don't know why this coach at Ohio State, a staffer, Joe Lieberger, is under investigation. This came out earlier today, placed on administrative leave in December because of a university investigation. A letter from school's human resources. This could be anything, but quality control coach Joe Lieberger, who worked with the linebackers, received a letter from the school informing him that he would be placed on paid leave effective immediately, would not be allowed at the Buckeyes facility. This was as they were leading up to playing during the conference, the college football playoff. His attorney saying that there's no evidence, they haven't given him anything, he doesn't understand. You would think in the legal system, at least you would know what you're accused of. But that's a story that's there with an Ohio State football support staff. It could be personal, and then it could be something else.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one, right? I mean, yeah, so.
My client, twist in the wind. The university machine moves at its own pace. Fourth year at Ohio State, and he's been placed on administrative leave. So there we are with that. I have no idea. But
I don't know. The Michigan story is way more interesting than we're talking about. That one has actually meat on it. But, yeah, I mean, whatever that is, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
The Michigan story, we have text and we have that ate up the 23 football season.
Well, it's also going to eat up some of this, and I don't think we're going to get that much into it because, again, we don't care that much about the story. I mean, if it's interesting and interesting enough to talk about, we will. Some middling Ohio State staffer has really nothing to do with that, and I don't think, people are going to much care unless that turns out to be something. But it's, a drop in a very large bucket compared to the Michigan thing. So
it is the third story on NCAA's page for ESPN. You're right. It's not like in the Michigan range, but it was interesting that today, after the story yesterday with Michigan came out, that an Ohio State assistant staffer was placed on administrative leave the day after that story. The latest story on Michigan did come out. Basketball, BYU at home. With Conor McGregor in attendance and having the best time of his life in Provo, Utah, BYU in overtime.
I don't understand how that happened. I've seen how Conor McGregor lives his life, and I've seen how things go down in Provo, and they mostly seem to be mutually exclusive. So
maybe he's there to talk to athletes about things, or maybe he's there to try to clear up his brain.
I mean, look, he has his own whiskey, so...
No, he doesn't.
Oh, he doesn't?
Not anymore, dude. He's got many legal problems, guys.
Right, yeah.
He's had so many lawsuits and so many accusations and of assault and sexual assault and, so many different things over these past few years he's been dealing with. He's, the proper whiskey that you're talking about. Last I saw, he wasn't even a part of that ownership anymore, or if he was, it was it wasn't like full-on ambassador. The way you start talking about him, it's like talking about Conor when he was in his glory days. Those days are a very long time ago now at this point. He hasn't fought in 2+ years. When he has fought, it wasn't impressive. And he's been, just basically wrangled up in legal affairs. So, that's cool. He appeared at the BYU game. I'm sure there's the reasoning as to that somewhere. But that's a cool appearance, and yet at the same time, he's lost a little bit of his luster with me because of just all of the ways his career has gone. It's turned into a total National Enquirer mess compared to the most popular, engaging, entertaining fighter. And, hey, when you make tens of millions or hundreds of millions of what he made during the most popular stretch of his career, maybe you lose that flicker and that flame, and you lose that star power. And I think that's part of what happened to him. I think the money got to him a little bit, and I don't know what else happened to him, but he's not worth talking about like he's some still relevant fighter that's still active. He's just a guy who's popping in and out of headlines, mostly for legal issues, and then teases of super fights with the Paul brothers. So it's like, I don't know. He's kind of in that Ric Flair mode to me. But that's cool. He was at BYU, and I'm sure he got a big ovation, and I'm curious to know, why he was there. But, my love for Conor McGregor has kind of dwindled over the years.
There were videos throughout the night of Conor McGregor in Provo as someone who was there, what he's going through. Hopefully he's getting himself taken care of. But you're right, he has legal problems throughout. He hadn't won a fight since like 2020. He's been irrelevant in like 2018-19 is about the last time he was relevant.
No, he hasn't fought in years, and I like the guy. He was my favorite fighter there for a while, but then you just get caught up, and hey, every lawsuit doesn't mean you're guilty. I'm sure there were people coming after him for his money, but it's like when you start to get like the third and the fourth and the fifth, it's like, okay now. And then when some of those incidents are actually, like parts of them are on camera, you getting into a bar fight, like you can't really, that's not somebody coming after you.
The bus thing.
Bus thing, like he's had multiple incidents, and it's just like, dude, get your stuff together. Now, I read just now that he was there because he's doing business with a sports nutrition brand. So he's doing stuff with their energy drinks, I guess, but that's what it says in the Deseret article. Seemed to enjoy himself, and hey, I'm sure BYU had a hell of a time, but I'm just talking about when y'all especially refer to me because y'all feel like I'm a big Conor McGregor fan, those feelings are not the same as they were in like 2021.
You're the first, but the way I'm talking about how he's a great fighter. It's just that Conor McGregor, that's why I brought it up. He was at the game, and I don't know what he's doing, but glad you looked up the energy drink.
I will tell you, though, if you had told me a million places that Conor McGregor could be,
BYU.
Provo, Utah would not be one of them.
Many on social media pointed out that McGregor was a rather shocking figure to see at BYU for a number of reasons. He wasn't officially recognized or introduced at the game, but still garnered plenty of attention, snapping selfies and even wandering over to the student section. So, they didn't even recognize that he was there. Maybe they didn't know he was there, but it seems like he had a good time. And I think that's just a built-up rant on my part because I just have conflicted feelings about him at this point in his career, and wish him the best, and that's cool that he was there.
All right, so BYU won the game in overtime. Huge win for the Cougars in Provo. Cannon Catchings, last night, the only Division I freshman this century. He was 8 for 8 or better from the field, 4 for 4 or better from the three-point line, and 3 for 3 or better from just regular, inside the arc. He was perfect, basically. And first time this century a player had done that. You would think that somebody would have had a hot game like that. But he was big last night for BYU. Scored 23 points. Another hell of a game from VJ Edgecombe. A huge game from him. 28. Rob Wright, 50 from those two freshmen. Norshad Omier had a really tough night. Jaden Nunn missed a couple of critical free throws in overtime, and BYU beats Baylor in Big 12 basketball.
Last 25 points scored by two people, Rob Wright and VJ Edgecombe. And that's like an awesome stat, but also a little bit troubling.
Well, they're young, but, no one's going to feel sorry for you. So here's something I also, because we got the box from Matt Roberts. They played 7 guys. One played 6 minutes, Asamoah. BYU played like 8 or 9, 10 deep with how many players they were to go to. And Baylor just doesn't have a very strong depth chart right now. I mean, they are – and guess what? The schedule doesn't stop for you. And I didn't expect him to win in Provo. BYU wins the game in overtime. So, but you're right. 50 points from the two freshmen. And that doesn't include the other one that's a freshman. And they scored a ton of the last few points. Nobody else chipped in. They just needed somebody to do so.
And that's cool that they both stepped up and did that, but shows you the depth problems that they have right now because of the injuries. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. They're in a weird spot. I said all week, you're going to see a different VJ Edgecombe because now there's nothing in his way, right? And not that they were in his way, but it's got to be him. That's to get scoring, roles going, it really has to be him based on who's on that roster. There's going to be some feast and famine that comes with that. And, of course, when you're playing in the Big 12 and you're playing on the road at BYU, you really need all the help you can get. And part of it is just, hey, if they've got 7 guys that they can play, then we're going to play 10.
Yep.
And
Wear you down.
That extra couple of minutes, especially when you go to overtime, turns out to be a big thing.
17,000 plus at BYU, that great arena that they have to watch BYU basketball. Here's a stat. This is one that it's not a bad statistic as far as percentage, but 16 of 24 at the free throw line. When you are thin and you're scratching for points, now this is a high-scoring game, 93-89. 16 of 24 is okay. What is that, 67%? No, it's not okay. You got to shoot free throws better, and they missed a couple of critical free throws in that near the end of that overtime. The defense just has not been good. They had a couple of wins in a row, but they do lose the game at BYU. Meanwhile, Kansas last night winning, beating UCF at home, Allen Fieldhouse, 91-87. KU, 29 free throws. UCF was 15 of 17, KU 25 of 29. Now, sometimes people look at that. A lot of times when you're trying to catch up, you send teams to the free throw line. UCF almost pulled off a huge win in that game at Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas, they're not sick, but they are a little bit, they're just not right now.
They need a tune-up.
Yeah,
the car runs.
Yeah, the Pistons aren't
car
clicking.
runs, but it's not. And they don't know, like Bill Self honestly doesn't know what his lineup should be. That's the issue. They have more depth than they did last year.
It's an issue when you're 20 games into what could be 35
he doesn't
or 40,
know what his lineup should be. Now, look, there's some injuries in there. KJ Adams came off the bench last night, which is where he needs to be. But, yeah, the Kansas, they just – the car could go faster. You know it can, but it's not right now. And it's because Bill Self has no idea what the lineup should be, and which is very rare for one of the elite coaches of all time.
Utah beat Cincinnati by 3, and Colorado lost at home to Arizona State by 2. So there's another night in the Big 12 when it comes to men's basketball. Hey, I've got a note about the Super Bowl. I was going to wait till Monday when we start our coverage in New Orleans at Radio Row inside the Convention Center. The Eagles defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, has faced Patrick Mahomes 8 times, 6 while he was in Denver, twice in Miami. He has never beaten Mahomes as a defensive coordinator. Now, again, other people have to play and beat Mahomes, but the defensive coordinator 0-8, and Mahomes has thrown 10 touchdowns and just 2 picks in those 8 games.
When I hear that stat, I just have this picture in my head of Nick Sirianni going, okay, Vic, what are we going to do? You think I know? Yeah. I'm 0-8 versus this guy.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Like, you tell me. I'll do whatever you tell me because I am 0-8. Please.
I wonder how many others are 0-8, though,
yeah,
or something even
plenty.
worse than that. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking the Chiefs, and I don't even need to think about it. I'll pick them in every big game scenario and feel like I'll be A-okay and always come out on top in the end. Maybe not in a one-off, but if you give me, 10 games, I feel like they're going to win at least 8 of those suckers. And no matter the matchup, no matter the setting, I mean, they always win. They always do. I think the Eagles will be a mighty fine challenge and one of the few teams that can probably match up with them the way that Philly can with the talent that they have and be able to throw guys like Saquon at that defense. But unfortunately, that whole contingent that's basically created this dynasty is not going anywhere because the carousel is almost over. Nobody's hiring Spagnuolo, clearly. To be a head coach, so he's going to be where he is. Reed's obviously not going to go anywhere. Mahomes isn't going to go anywhere. We'll have the whole, will Kelsey retire? And no, he won't because he's still pretty young, and I think that would be kind of dumb at this point. I think he can get a couple
36.
more years. But he's not, slowed down as, a player to the point where you're like, you're a shell of yourself, dude. Yeah. It's no, he's still, automatic first down guy. So, yeah, I mean, if he wants to go tour the world with his girlfriend, then maybe he decides to hang it up. But I mean, that'll be their biggest question mark, I suppose. And I don't know. He almost feels to me like a Gronkowski type guy where it's like, we don't see you all offseason, all of a sudden training camp rolls around and be like, hey, Travis, what are you up to, man? We could use another tight end. I mean, I could totally see that scenario as well. But, I mean, either way, the coaching staff at the top and the quarterback look like they're going to be the same moving forward no matter what happens in this Super Bowl. So, yeah, the Chiefs are here to stay for a while, and it's just a matter of how much damage they do. But if Mahomes goes to 4 Super Bowls this quickly, I don't know outside of an asteroid hitting Earth what's going to stop him from just crushing Brady's record. I really don't. I mean, if you're winning this much this early,
yeah.
I mean, what's going to stop you really? So, yeah, I'm very curious about the outcome of this game because either Philly's got a second Super Bowl and we're going to have to deal with that for an entire year, or we're talking about a guy already having 4 Super Bowls before he hits 30 years old, which is pretty insane.
It is insane what he's done, the 7 consecutive championship game appearances, and also seems to be just as genuine of a person as you could ever imagine. By the way, he will be in Waco in May. It's not an open event. It's not open to the public, but he'll be inducted into the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame from his days at White House High School. Cowboys are starting to patch together their staff in many different ways. Will McClay, I think this guy has been not a rock star, but has been really good. A new extension, multi-year extension as the vice president of player personnel. I think they draft really well. You're not going to hit on everybody. I think he does a great job. I think he's had some steals in the draft, and he's also had some that I don't know how much it was his decision, but he seems like he has set them up really well with what he's done in the scouting department since 2014.
I feel like the misses that they have in the first round are when they let a coach that has a pet cat. That's what I think happens. When Will McClay goes, okay, well, what do you think of this guy? Love him, love him, love him. And I think that's really what happens. Will does a very good job, especially given the fact that he's technically what the general manager does, but he's not a general manager. One of the great tragedies of the world, but he's making a lot of money and he's happy. So glad that he's sticking around because he's the only thing between the Cowboys in constant 5-12 seasons.
Will McClay.
He's the only thing. If Will McClay, if a guy like that has a football mind like Will McClay that can operate in the Joneses stratosphere of we're not going to spend money on free agents, no matter even if it's not that much, we're not going to do that, and we're not going to pay a head coach a lot of money. We're not doing that. Then, you get rid of a guy like that, it's chaos. It's 3 years in a row like Dave Campo again because was Dave Campo a bad head coach, or did they have bad talent evaluation at that time and salary cap jail and all that? I mean, I don't think any head coach that's failed to reach the Super Bowl.
Well, the thing about Campo was that you had all of your stars started to get injured and or retire and couldn't play.
Yeah.
And he was the one that was next in line after Irvin, and then Aikman, and Emmett was starting to be damaged goods, and all the others. They just ran out of gas.
Yeah, so was he bad at that, or was it just a victim of circumstance?
Yeah.
Like everybody else is. But Will McClay is the last line of defense between the Cowboys being somewhat relevant and competing for division titles or being the Raiders.
Okay. Well, you wish that they would be the Raiders for a year or two to get better draft picks, right? Because if you have him, he's the guy that seemed like,
they're never bad enough to be bad enough. And to give a guy like Will McClay a chance to go, okay, well, here's a real superstar. In fact, the only time that they have been bad enough, they got Zeke, and for a couple years that worked out really well.
Yeah.
So
I think they draft really, really well. They seem to hit on a lot of the mid-round, the late-round guys. I don't have all those names in front of me, but they seem to do that. When we come back, we've got a lot of guests for you today. Manny Navarro from theathletic.com. He looks at the transfer portal winners and maybe a couple of programs that have been hurt badly by it. And then also anything that's on the radar, in his opinion, that might lead to somebody else kind of getting into that top 5 or 6 programs. And then we'll hear from Ross Tucker from many different places. Westwood One, he's a part of CBS Sports. He has his own and incredibly popular Ross Tucker podcast, former NFL player. He'll join us today on a lot of things that NFL related. And then Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, in studio with us. Zach Gelb at 5. We appreciate your time. Andrew is here. Garrett is here. The new set, which is the old set, which has been spiced up against the wall that is on the other side of our office here, studio, is where Mac will be, right?
Yep.
And we'll have him on the show with thanks to Jack McKenzie for putting all that together. I'm David Smoak with Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Thank you, as always, for your time, and this is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. PettyClinicLowT.com can help you get your whatever back. You don't feel like the same. You don't have the same energy. You're not sleeping well. There's a lot of other things that can contribute to that. Your sex drive is down. You have ED issues, and it's just a mess. And there could be other reasons, but one of them that could affect all of that is low testosterone, and that happens to 1 out of every 3 to 3.5, 4 men. Symptomatic issues of low testosterone. So if you have any of what I just mentioned and you don't know what it is, Dr. Petty can help you out. Contact him, pettyclinicalot.com. Tell him I sent you. He can get you set up to get your blood work. He will get the results, take care of that. He'll then get in contact with you and say, hey, yeah, your testosterone's lower than it needs to be. Maybe slightly lower, but I think we could still put you in a program to kind of get that back, right? And so contact him, pettyclinicalot.com, to become the high-performance man that you need to be, used to be, and, well, you're kind of tired you're not that way anymore at pettyclinicalot.com.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
I'll never get used to this.
It's the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get the new 2025 Jeep Compass for just $25,995, or the 2025 Dodge Hornet GT for only $28,995. Save 20% on the 2024 Jeep Gladiators for 2.9% for 72 months. And the Jeep Wagoneer Series 2 gets $11,000 in discounts plus 3.9% for 72 months. Only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
What's up? We outside. Having fun doing what I want, cause you know the sun beating down kinda like a drum. Look how I do it. Look how I do it.
Another beautiful day out there, folks, so get out there, but don't forget your sunscreen, UV and
I just wanna have a good time. It's all on me, pleasure's mine. The weatherman said it's the right time, so we gon' get it jumping till the night time. We gon' get it. We gon' get it. We gon' get it. We gon' get it. We outside. Yeah, I might just take a dive with it, feel alive with it, ride with it, cause I'm fly with it. Loud with the trouble, loud with the bass. No clouds in the way, smile on my face. Look how I do it. Look at me, look at me, look at me splash. Look at me, look at me, look at me splash. Look at me, look at me, look at me splash. Look at me, look at me splash.
You might ask yourself what functional mushrooms are good for. Whether it's lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, shiitake, reishi, they all serve a purpose.
You have ones for neurological health, ones for sleeping and gut health, and all these different areas. They pack a powerful punch.
Functional mushrooms are, of the millions of mushrooms and fungi out there, the ones that we can actually ingest and benefit from as humans.
Like all adaptogens, they kind of adapt to what you need at the time that you need them.
We don't even really know that we're suffering. We just don't quite feel right. That's where these adaptogens come in and really start to close the gap and really start getting us closer to how we want to feel.
Functional mushrooms have definitely re-energized me and helped me face each day with a new vigor for life.
Learn ways that functional mushrooms can help you. Go to GetHumble.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Manny Navarro, theathletic.com. We got to know Manny, covered Miami, and had him on a handful of different times, and he joins us. There he is. Are you headed to soccer practice again?
You got to unmute, Manny. You're on mute.
You hear me now? There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm out of pickleball, man. I got my pickleball league Wednesday nights. It's competitive. We got a team going. You know, it's what we do down here in South Florida.
Well, we appreciate that, and thanks for jumping on as you do that. And, of course, appreciate you being a part of the show. You did a story about the transfer portal, the update, the roster movement, and much more, even about the ACC and other conferences. So if you were to say these 3 to 5 teams have done the best so far in the transfer portal, who would it be, and also a nugget about each one of them?
Yeah, I think LSU's probably been the best of anybody. And again, you know, we don't really know what these guys are going to turn out to be. They're going to new locker rooms. So I put that caveat into all of this stuff because sometimes it's the unexpected guys who step up and play well. But I think LSU's number one. They signed 8 top 100 players out of the transfer portal. Got a lot of repeats at certain positions. Edge rusher. Picked up one of the best ones out of Florida State. Got a cornerback out of Virginia Tech. They got a lot of guys that have started and played a whole lot. Patrick Payton as well, was talking about at Florida State, and Mansour Delani from the cornerback from Virginia Tech. I think, you know, a lot of SEC teams did well. I think Auburn did really, really well. I like their quarterback pickup from Oklahoma. I like some of the depth that they added on defense. They picked up playmakers on offense. I mean, Miami did really well out of the ACC. They got, obviously, Carson Beck, who was going to come in and replace Cam Ward at quarterback. I think they were the star of the ACC as far as the transfer portal, 6 top 100 players. Let's see who else. Texas Tech did phenomenal. I think they got 6 top 100 players as well, a bunch of offensive line. Lost me there for a second. Apologize. Texas Tech did phenomenal. The best team in the Big 12 in terms of the winner. And then I think in the Big 10, it's probably Oregon who did the best. They got 6 top 100 players as well. Mackay Hughes, the running back out of Tulane, is a guy that I think is going to be a big-time playmaker for him. You saw the impact that the running back position has in the playoffs, and Ohio State, what they did with the two-headed monster. I think Oregon did a great job getting Mackay Hughes out of Tulane.
Miami last year could not win games on defense if it came down to it. That was their undoing. Cam Ward, if Travis Hunter doesn't exist, like, he probably gets a lot more love for the Heisman Trophy just because of that fact that he was keeping them in games where they didn't play well because of his ability. Have they shored up that defense enough? And I know they've made staff changes over there as well. Have they shored up that defense enough so that Carson Beck, who athletically is probably a little bit of a step down when it comes to miracle maker like Cam Ward is, to kind of keep it rolling?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have 4 starting offensive linemen back from last year's squad. They went out and they got James Brockermeyer from TCU to play center. So they're going to have a really good offensive line. Cam Ward had a really good offensive line for him last year, which is why part of the reason why they were the number 1 scoring offense. I still think they got to address the receiver position. And they got C.J. Daniels out of LSU. He's going to help them tremendously, but I think they need one more receiver, so I expect them to spend some money on one here in the spring portal window. But defense, you mentioned it, was the Achilles heel. The secondary went out and they got 5 guys that were at least part-time starters, 6 starts or more from other programs. 3 of them, I think, were in the top 100 player list on the 247 composite. A lot of young DBs, guys that were all conference, second team, honorable mention type guys. And I think, this is going to be, on paper to me, even without Cam Ward, I think this is going to be a better Miami team, because you're going to have some guys that Mario Cristobal's recruited the last 2 or 3 years that are growing up now and stepping into bigger roles. And then you got quarterback solidified with Carson Beck. I think he's going to be a top 5 guy at his position. So I think this could end up being a better Miami team.
Manny, with Cam there, just a brief time, I mean, it certainly felt like he was all in, and certainly they got their bang for their buck, maybe not as a team in terms of accolades, but certainly individually. How will you sort of look back on the Cam Ward era, so to speak, at Miami, and do you feel like they got the bang for their buck they so desired?
Oh, without question. I mean, he put Miami back on the map in terms of being in the hunt to be in a conference championship game, to be a playoff team. They didn't finish the job. They blew a 21-0 lead at Syracuse. They should have won at Georgia Tech, lost that game. So they cost themselves a playoff spot. But Miami doesn't get Carson Beck if Cam Ward doesn't come here last year and do what he does. Mario Cristobal been dealing with a little bit of a stigma about him being a quarterback killer, right, in terms of just not developing guys at that position. Cam Ward came here. People knew he was going to be a really good player, but I don't think they expected him to be a Heisman finalist. There were a lot of people who had in the preseason Cam Ward, being a Heisman finalist, being a guy who led the #1 offense in the country. So I think Mario Cristobal, because of the success that Cam had this season, was able to recruit the quarterback position better, get a really good quarterback out of Georgia and Luke Nickel, who's going to be the future, and then be able to pull a starting quarterback in Georgia who led his team to an SEC title. So I think this is I think it was very important for Cam Ward to come to Miami to help his draft stock, and in the end, very important for Miami to get Cam Ward.
So you mentioned FSU at an honorable mention at 2-10.
Yeah.
What is a realistic expectation with Thomas Castellanos at quarterback, adding some of the guys they did like Deuce Robinson for that offense, a whole new offensive line? What's realistic for them?
Well, I think getting back to 500 is an important start. Really, when you look at Florida State's faults the last couple of years, Mike Norvell, it's missing on the recruiting trail. What's the difference between Miami and Florida State? Well, Mario Cristobal's been recruiting his ass off. Mike Norvell obviously was not, and that's how you slip to 2-10. You don't have much of a young team to turn to when older players leave, and so I think for Florida State, getting back to 6-6, getting back to 7 wins is a victory for Mike Norvell, considering how far they fell back last year. I think they will get there. I think we can't just look at Florida State and say, "Oh, forget it, they're never going to be good again," because they went 2-10 after going 13-1. You can have some wild swings, obviously, but I think that's a realistic goal. 6-7 wins for this Florida State team. They got a tough schedule too. It's not like they're playing a bunch of cupcakes either.
Manny, in terms of Carson Beck, it sure seemed like Miami knew they wanted him, and he wanted them in return, even though there was kind of that report there at the beginning of, hey, there's a couple schools, whatever. That all happened very fast. What do you like about Carson Beck? You kind of mentioned him a couple minutes ago, but what about his game stands out to you, and why is this such a great fit for the Canes, in your opinion?
Tough guy. You battle-tested playing in the SEC. You've played a really tough schedule. You've been in a lot of tough environments. Played a lot of close games. I know that Alabama ended up beating them last year, but that was a heck of a ball game, and that was a guy who was a gunslinger, right? He just came right back, tried to lead his team down the field late after Alabama took the lead, retook the lead. This guy's a winner, and he's been in really tough environments. Those guys are hard to find, especially in the transfer portal. And I know he's coming off the elbow injury, but other quarterbacks have proven in the past that they can come back from that injury and be just fine. Brock Purdy did in the NFL. I'm sure there's other examples of guys that have done it. So I think what Miami has in Carson Beck is a tough SOB who could win you some tough games.
Yeah, there were times which I think the offense, he got, of course, the criticism. They were stuck at times. But he like I remember the comeback against Alabama. My God, it was unbelievable what they did. So are the same 5 to 7 schools who have the best recruiting classes also the same 5 or 7 schools, Manny, that have the largest budget for transfer portal?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you're still having to spend a lot of money on high school recruits. You're still having to invest there, especially on the offensive and defensive line. Those guys are a lot harder to, in terms of the elite guys, to land out of the transfer portal. Usually when they land at one of these elite programs, they're not going anywhere because they're making good money and they're playing a whole lot. So I think, skill position's a little different. Quarterback's a little different. Wide receiver, running back a little different. You can go out and find those guys in the portal. But in the end, the teams that are going to be in it and winning national championships like Ohio State, like Georgia, like Texas, they got to recruit their butts off. They got to invest in high school recruiting because I still think 70 to 80% of your roster probably has to come from high school recruiting, and maybe the last 25% or so comes off the transfer portal.
Manny, when you look around at a school like Texas Tech, who's 8-4, like what do you think a jump is for them? Is this are the moves that they made, Dylan Thieneman, the kid from North Dakota State, like all those guys, are they good enough to get them to 10-2 and playoff contention?
Listen, who are Arizona State playing for the Big 12 championship last year? Nobody. They had them in last place, right? So, to me, the Big 12 conference is very winnable for anybody. You get the right quarterback, you get the right running back, you get whoever it is at those two main positions, and you got to get yourself a defense. I mean, you can be in every single ball game and win the league, and Arizona State proved that. I mean, they ran the ball well all season long behind Cam Scatterbo, and their quarterback played excellent. It was a great decision maker. So why can't Texas Tech win the Big 12, right? I mean, they invested heavily into this NIL class. They spent a lot of money. I thought they did really well grabbing experienced guys. They only lost, I think, one starter, one full-time starter in terms of guys who took off at one of their offensive linemen. So why can't Texas Tech win the Big 12? I think they very much could. It's just a matter of, when you get in those tight ball games in the fourth quarter, do you have the guys that are going to make the plays for you or not? I think the rest of it is, pretty even across that league.
Well, they have the momentum. It's just always been like they can't get over the hump. I mean, in 2008, they had that team that was so good, but then got hammered by Oklahoma after they beat Texas. And it's unbelievable, really, how long since they've won a big, like a conference title outright. It's a huge, huge stretch, but knocking on the door, they're doing what they can. Thanks for your time. Manny, go play. Did you already play or were you about to play?
No, I'm about to. We started around 6 o'clock tonight. Okay, I was getting some dinner, game planning. I cover enough of these athletes. I know the pregame preparation, right? You got to listen to your music. You got to eat some food a couple hours before. So I'm trying to get myself into the mindset to win tonight, man.
Well, good luck and do that. Thank you. Manny Navarro, theathletic.com, with a lot of information from his side of what he does covering the transfer portal. Thank you for his time. We appreciate that. Also, coming up, Ross Tucker from the Ross Tucker Pod. And also, if you have a girlfriend or love or whoever it might be, and you're looking for something unique for Valentine's Day, he does this with us Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, and Christmas on front page, and how you can maybe blow away the person that you want to send a Valentine's gift to. Ross Tucker on the NFL and more. And then Mack Rhoades. This is 365 Sports. I had it. I lost it. I have it now. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. They will be where we host the next Academic All-Stars banquet, which is going to be in mid-May. I think it's the 14th of May. It's always on the second or third week of May, Wednesday night, inside the Baylor Club, where we will have 20 incredible young men and women who we honor for what they do. They're all involved in athletics, whatever sport it might be, or multiple sports, and they're also all highly right up the chain when it comes to being a part of a valedictorian or among the top 10% of their class, or maintaining 4 consecutive years of an A average. We host that inside the Baylor Club. They do a remarkable job making us feel like we're the only ones there inside that big stadium. And they have great food, great customer service. General Manager Mike Mosel, memberships available, and tell them that you watch or listen to what we do on 365 Sports, and they will work with you on maybe lowering how much that initiation fee might be, or a month or two of dues that are reduced. It's the Baylor Club. Tell them 365 Sports sent you.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We're waiting on Ross Tucker. We'll get him on with us in just a second. A couple of notes in the chat room. Barry Crawford. Cam Ward is going in the first round. He could very well be number 1 in the draft. Everyone seems to blank on him for playing half of a bowl game when everyone else in that sport wouldn't have played at all.
Yeah, I think that was as much social media just trying to gang up and bully guys on things as much as anything. I saw a lot of that backlash, and I feel like a lot of it was negating or ignoring the fact that that was something that he and Cristobal had talked about, and that he very clearly was trying to get the record, and that so long as Miami didn't view it as selfish, then they didn't have a problem with it, and he just got named the Manning Award winner, so I guess their voters didn't have a problem with it. And yeah, I don't think most people, unless people just really wanted to poke holes at Cam Ward, had a problem with it, honestly. I can see the optics and why they were bad, but if you get down to the root of it, it's like he didn't have to, he could have just sat out that game, sure, but he wanted the record, and I understand that. And so I didn't really hold that against him the way it seems like a lot of people did, and it's certainly not to the degree, regardless of how you feel about that's fine, but regardless of how you sit on that subject, it's not enough to negate him not being the #1 quarterback in the draft or the #1 overall pick. So, yeah, he's going to be at the very top. And right now, I guess the best bet would probably be #1 overall. Yeah, would probably be the best bet, I would think.
Well, I got to say, and this is me admitting this, is that when I first heard, this is following Jalen Smith, Notre Dame linebacker, who just completely ripped his leg off basically in a bowl game and had the drop foot, and the Cowboys drafted him, and he was pretty good for about a year or two. But there were thoughts he may never really walk well again. And then that started what became players being able to opt out. That wouldn't have happened in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or maybe the 90s, and I don't know if it ever did anyway. And at first when I saw that, going back to like, oh, my God, that's awful, it's as much a business. You may not like it. There might be a team or two in the NFL that when they see a player, whatever Cam Ward did, or if somebody opts out, or it's a different world, man.
There was also an article that pointed out that if he opted out, that the feeling was there was going to be like 10 other guys that opted out. So he actually did them a favor by playing, also got them more attention by playing, broke a record by playing. So there are definitely more positives than got reported, but that was one of the reasons that was cited was that like there was a bunch of guys who wouldn't have played if he didn't play.
Look, the fault for this lies with Mario Cristobal for not just saying, like, oh, those things are private. Look, he played, wanted to break the record. These bowl games, don't mean as much. We didn't want to get him hurt. He's got a bright future. But to say, like, we wanted to see what we had in Emory Williams, like, bro, we know you know what you have in Emory Williams.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, you've watched him in practice a ton. So just don't lie. Just say, like, look, this is the reality of this thing.
Dude, honestly, it's like Florida and Florida State fans and anti-Miami fans. They just wanted to make that a much bigger deal than it was. It was Twitter or Facebook or whatever, like you want to point to, Instagram, I don't know. Wherever the types of conversations that go on. The backlash that he got, I understood it initially, but the more, they didn't probably deliver the message that well because it caused a lot of confusion on what Cristobal actually knew or he didn't and, who's being selfish and whatnot. But the more you read and fleshed it out, it's like, it really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's totally not. And part of it was Mario Cristobal not just wanting to say, like, we all know these games don't count, right? Like, they count, but they don't. It's not the same anymore. It's different because your fans don't want to hear that. That's the biggest thing is his fans didn't want to hear, like, all right, look, here's how it was. Oh, so you didn't, have a plan to definitely win this game. It was whatever happens. Like that's the thing. But it was Mario Cristobal's fault for not being able to address it directly for whatever reasons he chose.
No question about that. We got Ross?
He's calling me in a couple minutes.
Okay, well, we have Mack Rhoades going to be in the studio here momentarily. So we also have that coming up around the corner. Paul Catalina, David Smoak, Craig Smoak, and 365 Sports. Which school in the Big 12 has not, in your opinion, done enough in the portal that you thought would be more active in the portal? Anybody in particular? And I'm asking the chat that too because a lot of you, of course, are fans of specific teams.
I'll tell you who hasn't taken big swings like I think they needed to was Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, like they've brought in some guys, but yeah. So anyway, here's Ross.
Okay, all right. Oklahoma State, of course, coming off the disaster. Craig, anybody want to add that? He said?
No, I think there's some programs that haven't done a ton, but that's more of a broader conversation to not just squeeze in here. So
all right.
we can get returned to that.
We will do that. Ross Tucker with us. He's everywhere. He has his own podcast, also a part of CBS Sports Westwood One. We've known Ross for a long, long time, and we will get to what he promotes right before Valentine's in just a moment. Ross, thanks for your time. We appreciate it as always. What are your thoughts and how, as a guy who played the game, and you saw great players over the years, what Mahomes has done by getting to 7 consecutive AFC championship games, winning some of them, and now trying to create history with 3 straight Super Bowls?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously unbelievable. I cannot emphasize enough how hard it is to do what they're doing. In particular, 17 straight one-score games they've won. That is like statistically impossible. I mean, I do a betting podcast. It's called the Even Money Betting Podcast. And my co-host is like the math guy. And he said the odds of a team winning 17 straight one-score games is like 1 in 125,000. Now, obviously, the Chiefs have Mahomes and Andy Reid. That gives them a little bit better odds. But still, it just puts in perspective how truly incredible it is what we're witnessing from them. Super, super impressive. And I think that's why they win. I mean, they got other role players that step up and make the plays that need to be made. And maybe more importantly, don't make the critical errors, which is super impressive. But when you have the best quarterback and you have the best head coach, that is a heck of a place to start. I mean, that's a heck of a place to start, which is why really if you're the Eagles, you got to try to make sure it's not a one-score game. I mean, you got to figure out a way to make it a 2-score game or win, because one-score game, I don't know many people that are taking Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni over Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in a one-score game late.
So the Eagles maybe have, like, I asked this on an earlier podcast to someone. Like, every team has someone that, like, their fans hate. They're like, oh, my God, that guy sucks. I think it's fair to say that the Eagles don't have anybody on this team that's that. It is one of the most talented and deep teams maybe ever, and unfortunately for them, they have to go face, Superman and the Justice League here in a little bit. But what do you think of the job that Howie Roseman has done in just a year after completely hitting the wall in the middle of the season last year?
Well, it's at least the second time in the last 3 years that they pretty clearly have the best roster in football. I mean, just off the top of my head, they have the best offensive line. They have the best running back. They have a top 3 receiving duo. They have a top 5 tight end. You know, I'll table Hurts for a second. They had the number 1 defense this year, certainly the number 1 defense since the bye. I mean, that's like every position. I mean, that's pretty darn good. You know, I'll put it another way. If they had Andy Reid as their head coach and Mahomes as their quarterback, and by the way, Sirianni and Jalen Hurts have done a terrific job. But if they had, you know, Andy Reid and Mahomes, they're probably winning the Super Bowl by double digits every year. You know what I mean? Like they're that good. But quarterback and head coach make a big, big difference. And that's why this game's going to be so compelling and should be such a great game. I'd be really surprised if it's not. Let's put it this way. I don't think the Chiefs will blow out the Eagles. The Eagles are too good. I think there's some chance that maybe the Eagles could get up by 2 scores and kind of run away from the Chiefs. And frankly, that's what they need to have to try to win the game, because in a 1-score game late, it'd be tough. But yes, Roseman is the best GM in the NFL. He has been for a while. It's probably not even close.
Ross, what do you think of, you mentioned him there briefly, Jalen Hurts and the Hurts factor in this game? He's a guy who gets a lot of attention. He's a top, 10-ish, whatever you want to rank him, quarterback in the league, but it does feel like he's almost overshadowed a little bit by the other team in this matchup, certainly, and even a little bit by some of the components of his own team. Battled injuries, looked good last week. What are your thoughts on just, like I said, the Hurts factor in this Super Bowl?
Well, listen, I mean, even just the offense, he's the only guy that's not clearly in the top 5 at his position, so I think he suffers a little bit because of that. I'll give him a lot of credit. He does have a strong tendency to play his best when it matters the most. I mean, 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, he was outstanding. Should have been the MVP of the game, which, by the way, I don't know, that almost makes it scarier that he was the MVP of the game, played awesome, they had the better roster, and they still lost that game. Right? That's kind of bananas. And then the same thing I would say in the NFC Championship game. That's the best he had played in a couple months. He hadn't played that well since the Steelers in whatever that was, week 12 or something, week 13 maybe. I mean, it really speaks to the fact that he plays his best when it matters the most. They're going to need that again. I just don't think Spagnuolo is going to let Saquon run all over him. I think they're going to make Hurts beat him, and he's going to have to show that he can do it.
Ross, what were your thoughts about the Cowboys' process that ended up with Brian Schottenheimer?
Yeah, it's a mess. Now, that's not speaking ill of Schottenheimer. I'll get to that. But it seemed pretty clear that Jerry Jones wanted Mike McCarthy back, but he really doesn't like to pay coaches to not coach. He really did not want to give him a 2-year deal or even a 3-year deal. It's like he wanted him on a 1-year deal, and McCarthy said, nah, I'm not doing that. I can do better than that, and he didn't. I think McCarthy thought he would get the Chicago job or the New Orleans job and get a real 4, 5, 6-year deal. Didn't happen for him. I actually think if those guys were being truthful, they would probably admit that they would have been better off if they had just stayed together. But they both thought that they might have better options, and I don't know that they did. Now, I'll say this about Schottenheimer. His dad's the best coach I ever had. 2001 in Washington. And I had Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, Joe Gibbs. We had 3 Hall of Famers, and I thought Schottenheimer was the best coach that I was ever around. Just most impressive to me in terms of command of the room, culture, all of those things. He doesn't have the track record that those other guys did, but, I mean, you're talking about a lot of success in Cleveland, in Kansas City, in Washington, the 1 year I was with him. in San Diego. I mean, you are doing some coaching if you win that much at that many different stops with that many different quarterbacks. And the other thing is, the reality is, guys, nobody knows anything, right? I mean, 2016, the Eagles hired Doug Peterson. Multiple outlets said that it was the worst hire of the cycle in 2016. 2017, they win the first Super Bowl in franchise history. Then 4 years ago, the last head coach hired, who wasn't even calling the plays for the Colts, was a guy named Nick Sirianni. And all he does is he's got the Eagles in their second Super Bowl in the last 3 years. So, Schottenheimer might not be the hot shot coordinator, but a lot of times those guys that are hot shot coordinators, they end up being terrible head coaches, right? So the reality is nobody knows anything. Maybe Schottenheimer is a better head coach than he was a coordinator. Maybe his skill set is better suited for that. We'll find out. But again, until they're actually sitting in that chair, I wouldn't be surprised if Schottenheimer ends up being a better head coach than Brian Johnson, or Ben Johnson, I should say. It's a different skill set than calling plays.
Can any head coach win given the Cowboys' current structure in the way that the Jones family stands in the way of talent acquisition?
I think you can win. I think it's probably going to be tough to win big. With their philosophy when it comes to contracts and trying to wait as long as they possibly can, I've yet to get a good explanation for why that's their philosophy. I guess they're waiting for the guy to get hurt, or they're waiting for the guy to screw up off the field or somehow hurt his market. Maybe they just want to have that money in their bank account as long as possible for the interest. I don't know. But there's not really a very good explanation, and it hasn't been successful for them. It's put them in some really bad spots, which is why they find themselves in the situation they've been in with CeeDee Lamb and Dak. They're going to do the same thing with Micah Parsons. Mm-hmm. I thought this was a very, very discouraging offseason last year if you're a Cowboys fan, because they clearly got worse at running back with Tony Pollard leaving, or center with Biadasz or whoever, and they didn't even try. They didn't even try to get better at those spots. They didn't even try to replace those guys.
Ross, my Cowboys co-host here is not in a good place, as you can tell. He's bummed out about the hire. I, as a Washington fan, however, for the first time in 20 years, feel pretty great about the direction of that football team, despite the way that it ended. They went so much further than I could have ever imagined. What are your thoughts on what you saw this year from Washington, and your thoughts on what that means for them also now moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, you should. You should feel great about it. I'd feel great about it if I were you, too. It's incredibly impressive what they've done. You've got the most important piece. You've got the quarterback, right? And the thing about Daniels is he's not just good, he's clutch. You think about the fourth quarter against the Eagles in week 16, or, week 17, Sunday Night Football, and overtime against the Falcons, and the two playoff games. Some guys play their best when it matters the most. Some guys don't. He clearly does, which I think is the most encouraging thing. I thought Adam Peters signed a lot of guys to contracts that ended up really being good moves. Their GM, Frankie Louvu, and Bobby Wagner, and Zach Ertz, and then Biadasz and Allegretti, and you draft Sanders still and Daniels. I mean, I'd be very encouraged about the early returns on the new GM there in Washington and his ability to add more pieces to help James Daniels out.
Ross, you every year, myfrontpagestory.com, I told everybody who watches us in the chat room or even through the app or on YouTube about if you have somebody that you want to make it even more special than ever before on Valentine's or Mother's Day, which is later, but tell everybody again about what you've done with myfrontpagestory.com.
Well, not everybody's a famous writer like David Smoak, okay? Not everybody has that background. So some people need someone else to be able to write something and really put their words into print. And that's what myfrontpagestory.com is all about. as you're driving home from work, or if you want to just fill out a quick email, they'll write the most incredible stories about your significant other. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper, framed pictures, the whole deal. And just being able to say to her, honey, I want to do something special. So I had a story written about you. That sounds amazing. When she reads the quotes, I never thank her enough for all the little things she does. They cry almost every time. Couldn't possibly recommend a Valentine's Day gift more than myfrontpagestory.com. At a minimum, throw your email address in there at myfrontpagestory.com. Get the immediate 20% discount code, and then use it whenever you want. Anniversary, birthday, Mother's Day, whatever. myfrontpagestory.com.
She'll cry and you'll win. Is it all right?
That is exactly right. It's like a next-gen stat. They cry like 95% of the time, I'd say.
Ross, we'll be in New Orleans covering the Super Bowl. I'm not sure what your schedule is next week. Are you going to be in New Orleans, or are you still going to be traveling elsewhere?
No, I'll be there. I'll be there Sunday to Friday doing my shows, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and the betting show, Even Money Betting Podcast. So I'll be down there on Media Row for sure.
All right, man, we'll see you. We'll come up, say hi to you. Ross, thanks for your time. MyFrontPageStory.com with Valentine's around the corner. Mother's Day, he mentioned anniversaries, and the unique gift for Valentine's is there for you. Ross Tucker with us, Odyssey, CBS Sports, also with Westwood One and his own podcast, the Ross Tucker Podcast. We want to go straight to our guest?
Let's take a break.
All right, we'll come back. He's invaded the studio. Haven't seen him in 2 or 3 years. Did not invite him. Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades, is next. Kidding. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. You want Angus cattle, farm-raised, and then what becomes the great steak, the Wagyu steak? You want that? You can get that by going to TexasBeefHouse.com. They have an auction that will come up in early February, the best you can get when it comes to Wagyu steaks. From their farm, their ranch, from their Angus cattle to your plate. The Duvall family started this business a handful of years ago. They learned about, one, raising the great cattle, and then making it into a product that you can get at the price you want. They have these auctions. You walk into a grocery store, there might be a whole row of a bunch of steaks, different types. What they do is they have it online. And if you want to get into a bidding online, let's say 4 really nice Wagyu ribeyes, you can get in it, bid, and if it gets a little bit too steep, walk away. But there's 40 or 50 lots, is what they call them, of different type of Wagyu beef for you to get online. They have 1, 2, and sometimes 3 auctions, live auctions, every single month. I'll tell you about the next one coming up when it's there. It's TexasBeefHouse.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. 365 Sports taking you up until 6 o'clock. Around the corner, Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network, will join us at around 5 in Paul's Top 5 at 5:50. In the studio, Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades joins us. It's been a while. It's great to have him. He's on the set, our old set, by the way, that Jack kind of spiced back up just for this appearance. Mack is with us.
I doubt that, but it feels good.
Paul, Craig, and David Smoak, Brent Ingram, thank you very much for being here, too. So the ACC released their schedule like yesterday.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the last couple of years, the Big 12 has been on the 30th or the 31st, if I remember correctly. So can you give us a sneak preview today, and do you know if that's coming out this week?
I think we're days away. So I would say that, like in years past, very end of January, and what is today, the 29th, or possibly moving into early February. So within the week.
Do you see any need for any scheduling model changes after year one, or do you need to see a little bit more data?
Yeah, Paul, great question. I think, probably need to see another year. Mm-hmm. I would just say this with super conferences, right, and 16 teams, and, your TV partners being actively involved in needing to review schedule and all that before it becomes public. It's become really, really complicated. And, do we need to potentially start a little bit earlier? I think that's a question. That's something that we'll talk about in our upcoming AD meetings. But, Scott Draper with the Big 12 has done a phenomenal job overseeing, navigating the schedule, right? I think, probably pre-super conferences, you went through 50 to 60 models, and now you're probably going through 100 plus until you really find one. The computer spits out one that meets all of your scheduling parameters and has fairness for all 16 member institutions.
So, Mac, I just want to make sure you said that, and we're kind of blocked our angle here, but you think in the next week or so we should see a schedule for next year? Is that right?
Yeah, I would anticipate, unforeseen any hiccups. I would absolutely believe here within the next week.
Good deal. Okay, I just wanted to make sure on that. Now, as far as the super conferences and all of that, the onboarding of another 4 teams, and the year the Big 12 had Arizona State, this unlikely champion, they get into the playoff, and I feel like represented as well as you possibly could without getting a win. What were your thoughts just on, I guess, the season as a whole for the Big 12? What does it kind of, look like to you in hindsight?
Yeah, I thought it was a really, positive season. I think, Arizona State's an interesting case study because if you go back to the beginning of the year, they were picked to finish last, and to go on the run they did, and great job by Coach Dillingham and certainly the Arizona State program, and then to be a playoff team. I think that just speaks to the time that we're in when we think about transfer portal. And do you really know, what type of team your opponent has, what type of team you have, right, going into the probably the first 3 weeks of the season. So, but I thought it was a really good first year for the Big 12, as a 16-member conference. Again, Arizona State, you had, schools like, Iowa State, Kansas State, BYU in the playoff conversation throughout the year. Unfortunately, those three teams, had back-to-back losses, in November, and so that hurt a little bit. And then, hey, for us, Baylor, selfishly, winning 6 in a row. I thought we were one of the top 4 teams in the conference, finishing the season. So this is going to be, moving forward, a extremely competitive league. And I think the next step for Big 12 is we've got to get multiple teams into the playoff.
All right, so I know the first year's over, the 12-team playoff, and it's going to be that way again next year, 12, and then who knows what happens. But your commissioner is very vocal about maybe not having enough respect from the committee. You're inside the committee. I don't know what you can discuss or not, but did you feel that at any time?
Yeah, first of all, I've got great respect, as you know, for Commissioner Yormark, and he's doing his job, right? He's defending, the Big 12 and its member institutions. I would say this, 13 committee members, exceptional human beings, all wanting to get it right, all spending a lot of time, came to each meeting every week, extremely prepared, robust discussions, conversations, and I thought, what impressed me most is every one of those committee members comes from somewhere, right? A former team they played for, a former team they coached, right? A school they were the AD, at, or, had been an AD previously somewhere else before. And I thought that everybody left their bias at the door, that they left whatever school color they had in their past at the door. And when we walked into that meeting room, there was no bias, just a lot of robust conversation, disagreement, vetting, all of those things about the teams. And again, trying to every week get it right when you think about 1 through 25.
You guys sign a confidentiality agreement, is that correct, those who are on the committee? One of the things, from my perspective, is that there's probably, in my opinion, not enough transparency. There's a spokesperson, like, for example, Manuel was that, and there's been others. I mean, do you think that more transparency would be helpful?
It's an interesting question, Smoak. And, one, and I probably, again, my first year, and, I would say this, we've already met in terms of, what are things we can do better. And I really, really appreciate that about General Clark, the executive director of CFP, that, he wants to make sure and look back and say, hey, are there any places, that we can be better, get better, new processes, systems, et cetera. I thought personally that Ward did a great job, and I thought he was transparent. When I think about transparency, are you having the camera in the room in terms of some of the heated conversations and discussions we're having, right? We're obviously looking at win-loss record, but I mean, we're talking about, strength of schedule. That's a tool, right? How do we evaluate? How do we rank? We're talking about, head-to-head competition. We're talking about common opponent. All of those things, all of the statistical data. I mean, we have more statistical data at our fingertips when we look at offensive categories, defensive categories, all of those things. And so, in terms of transparency, I guess I would ask you, what would you like to see, when you think about, those types of conversations?
You guys want to pitch in on this too?
I would say I don't need to hear the discussion. I don't like that's because a lot of it will turn out to be initially like, I don't want to say fluff, but like superfluous to the conversation of that was this corner of the room's opinion. This is this corner of the room's opinion. This is how it got worked out. It feels, and maybe less so now that it's 12 than when it was 4.
Yeah.
Like when it was 4, it was like, well, we can't tell you anything. And you're like, well, it's still, I mean,
there were a lot of key phrases and key words
into that.
Managing the
So,
game,
just
controlling the
like
game.
If I know how my congressmen vote, I would just like to know like how it went down. If there's like a voting thing, that's pretty much that
I
way.
want cameras in the damn room is what I want.
I don't know how productive that would be, but yeah, I mean, yeah. So
I want to hear what anyone.
I don't
has
want it to be
say.
like a congressional hearing.
No,
I will say this, and I don't remember the percentages, so forgive me, but in the aftermath of the 12 team, two things, right? The public spoke out. One was just really in favor, I think it's 70% plus of the 12-team playoff, right? And so I think that was a really, good move, wise move going from the 4 to 12. And I think we all believe that. And there were some skeptics, right, before we embarked upon it. And then number 2, there was a high percentage, again, in terms of just trust in the committee. And again, look, I used the word biased earlier. Maybe I'm biased because I'm part of it. But I really think the process works. I think the conversations, the discussions in the room are the right discussions. And, I can't say enough how often, once we rank that we go back and relook and vet and, really try to get it right and walk away. When we leave that room, we all feel good about it.
Yeah, I don't know what you can talk about, Mac, but obviously one of the big topics afterwards was the seeding of the first round. Just, I guess, kind of what have the discussions been like amongst you guys, and what do y'all take in and absorb, and, what can be looked at, and all of that in terms of, hey, we've seen it now. It was pretty cool, but, what does it look like now moving forward that we've seen it?
Yeah, I think, not surprisingly, right, probably the number one topic of conversation publicly, internally, right, is just the seating, right? And, again, as a committee member, we're not sitting there worried about the seating. All we're worried about is ranking 1 through 25 and then place the teams as the seating dictates. And, as a reminder, the seating, was something that, the commissioners came together and really put forth. And I think there will be some conversation down the road here in the next month or two about, do we tweak that? Do we not tweak that? I think, everybody probably has their own particular opinion. This is the last year, this upcoming year,
right.
Is the last year of the current agreement. And then so moving forward, what does it look like? Is there a natural progression into that? So I think there's a lot to be discussed here, I think, in the next 2 to 3 months. I think for me, and you didn't ask the question, man, what I thought was magical about the CFP playoff were the home site games.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I just felt like when I watched it on TV, you could just feel it through the TV, and that was, I thought, a really cool element of the 12 team. And so, but Craig, yeah, I think that needs to be vetted and will be vetted when we think about the seeding process.
We had former players at the schools who played at home in the opening round that were at those games, and they were as excited, I think, as the fans who are there all the time. And they loved that their school was like Bobby Taylor, who played at Notre Dame, just said it was the greatest atmosphere he'd ever been a part of since he played the game. He loved that. He is that ever something that again, like the second round might loop into that too?
I don't know that, I'm not in all of those conversations.
Right.
And so I don't know if that's been a topic of conversation, but you bring up the former student athletes, and, that is very top of mind when we are in the committee room, are the current student athletes, right? We want to get it right first and foremost for the current student athletes, those that are deserving to play in the 12-team playoff. And that's really priority number one for us.
Mack, do you think that there could ever be a rework? Because I know the bowls are a big factor in all this stuff, and they're not going to want to go anywhere. But the way that it used to work and the way that it works now, it just don't quite jive as much. Where the seeding could be, instead of conference tie-ins with bowl games, you just go down after the 12 and put those teams against each other so we get better matchups all the way down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Paul, use your imagination, right? We're at that place in time when we think about college athletics, and so I don't think any of those things are off the table. In fact, that's an idea that I've heard discussed. Is there a different way to do the bowl games, that are outside of the 12-team playoffs? So, it'll be interesting to see how all of this evolves. But it was. I will say this. It was an unbelievable experience for me, and said it before, it was a we appointment. It was because of Baylor and who Baylor and how Baylor is respected, and grateful for that opportunity. Also grateful for my staff, because they, I was out every Monday and Tuesday from that first Monday in November, all the way through, I think, December 8th. And so they did a great job in terms of just making sure our athletic department didn't skip a beat.
So, Mack, you kind of spoke to this a little bit earlier, just taking a look at the schedules and things like that. With the Big 12, it's not the offseason because it's basketball season, but it's the football offseason, I suppose. What do you think just kind of like the future holds in terms of the football side of things and the conversations to come, and just the focus of the league now having absorbed so much and changed so much, and looking towards 2025 and beyond? What do you think those conversations are like, and what do you think they're about when it comes to the league and football in particular?
Yeah, I think when it comes to football, I think we probably need to visit schedule and how we schedule. Following this year. This year was set, but do we need to look at it differently? I think it's going to be a conversation that happens throughout college football, championship games. What happens there, right? Is there a different way to think about that? I think some of the conversations that we're currently having is just investment in house, as a league, when we think about 16 members and their respective football programs. So I think that's on the table. I think from a broader perspective, from a national perspective, and speaking as the athletic director for Baylor, do we need to get to some common ground in terms of how many non-conference games you play versus how many conference games you play? Does there need to be equality amongst all of the conferences in terms of how that's laid out in future years? And so I don't know that there's an appetite for that, but there's certainly a lot of side conversations about it, and I would expect those to continue on here into the future.
I'll say yes. There needs to be uniformity. I think that's the big thing, though, right? Uniformity, because we're not in that era anymore where, like, the conferences are too big, where you can't kind of get, like, uniformity in officiating across the board, that there's not, people aren't mad because SEC officials are calling their game or Big 12 officials are calling their game.
I'd say that's one of the big topics, too, is the
like
officiating.
Like that needs to be the same. Like, you shouldn't ask a conference commissioner, Mack, like, is horns down a penalty in this league when it's not a penalty in another? That shouldn't be a question. If it's a penalty in one league, it should be a penalty in the other, or not. I think that's what the public wants, is uniformity across the board. So if it's 8 conference games, if it's 9, let's all get on the same page.
Yeah. And Paul, right now I'm nominating you for football commissioner.
Oh,
so college football commissioner, all right? But, the officiating piece, and I heard it from Craig, right? I think that's another, topic of conversation for the commissioners. Is there a better way to do it when we think about the playoffs? Should you have a championship game and that crew being referred to as an SEC crew doing the game? And so, all those things are on the table. And, I think, again, it's evolved up to this point in time, and it'll continue to evolve.
With the House ruling, whenever that eventually happens, I've seen people who cover various programs say that X, Y, and Z is going to commit $18 million of the revenue sharing, or $22 million, or whatever the number is. How does Baylor approach that? And will that change what you have from the day you walked in the door of teams that are a part of Baylor competing for for championships with this new landscape we have in athletics?
Yeah, so, when we think about, House settlement and, the number, right, the 22% of average Power 4 revenue, and, that number's been thrown out. Probably the most recent number is $20.5 million. We've been looking, budget-wise, from a Baylor perspective at 21. And so, we'll be all in when we think about House. Grateful, in terms of President Livingstone, our Board of Regents, right? Grateful to our athletic department because we're having to do a lot of different things to be able to get there when we think about, operational efficiencies, when we think about revenue generation, et cetera. But, we'll be competitive, absolutely, in that space. And then I think you asked, how will that impact our sport programs and the ability to
because football
compete?
And basketball, men's basketball, they're going to get 80% of it, or whatever the number might be, and football is going to get a large chunk. So how does that affect how other sports that don't bring in that revenue or won't get that revenue on them competing for championships? And how does that affect Title IX in scholarships? Because that's also now been brought up.
Well, so those are two huge questions, okay? And so I think specific to Baylor and our other sports than the three that you mentioned, football, men's and women's basketball, right? I think one, nobody knows, because we have no idea in terms of reality and where dust will settle in the next 12 to 18 months, right? I would say that more than less, when you just think from a national lens, are going to distribute those house payments, those internal direct house payments via NIL licensing agreements, mainly to football, men's and women's basketball. That's what I suspect, right? And so what does that mean for competitiveness for all of the other sports? And, I would guess all of our other sports are going to look more like the rest of the nation, right, rather than not. Now, again, hard to predict, and we need to take and continue to monitor and take a close look. What we have told our coaches, right, is we don't want to go backwards, right? I can't promise how much we go forward, but we're not going to go backwards. And that's been my message, and I think we've been very transparent, very direct, very upfront with our coaches as we think about this new landscape, new environment. And so, we've been blessed, as where our all of our sports programs have been competitive. I do think there's been one or two that have struggled because of NIL, the pay-for-play NIL. And, I think, for example, baseball, I think we've got a plan for baseball, and I think baseball will be in good shape. Now I'm going to shift to Title IX, right? And you think about roster caps, and now everybody on the roster can be on full scholarship. And so, baseball is a big topic nationally because when you think about a male sport, that's where you're going to see a lot of those full scholarships go. Well, at Baylor, Title IX, right, gender equity, if you do that, then you have to do it on the female side as well. And so when we think about Title IX gender equity compliance, Baylor will be compliant when we think about scholarships and how we distribute scholarships between male and female sport programs. So there's a lot, when we think about how this will land in the future. And it may require us to have conversations with our coaches in terms of, hey, there's the same expectations that we've always had, or there's different expectations. But we're going to walk through this in lockstep with our coaches and be honest and direct. And, up to this point in time, we have. And I think we have a really thoughtful and good plan moving forward.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us in studio, 365 Sports.
Mack, we had Ren Baker on the show about a month ago.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So, and after the the Mack Rhoades roast portion of the interview, we got down to brass tacks. But I asked him about collective bargaining and if he was in favor of it, and he very much was. And maybe not in the sense of like, well, this is something that's going to be fun for everybody, but it's not the simplest, but it's the most direct answer to solving a lot of the issues that you have. Are you in favor of collective bargaining, or like you said, you want to go forward, so that means you kind of have to ride the wave a little bit, even if it's some things that, presidents and ADs may not like to swallow?
Yeah, I think, one, this is very much when we think about future federal legislation, and I really believe we're going to need federal legislation to walk alongside the House settlement. So that would be one. I think when you talk about collective bargaining, it is a political issue. It is a Republican-Democrat issue, right? Democrats want it, right? Unionization, employment status, right? Republicans don't. That's a very simplistic, very, very simplistic overview. I would say that we need to find a way, and maybe we use the term collective bargaining, maybe we don't, where both our student athletes and the NCAA, college athletics, the Power Fours, are sitting down at the table and are agreeing to terms, right? That are agreeing to a set of rules that we can both live with and move forward with them. I think right now there's a lot of gray when we think about just how do we navigate the future when we think about that relationship. And so I would tend to say, hey, if it's not called collective bargaining, then we need something very, very much like it for the future.
Mack, this is kind of off topic to what we're talking about, but I want to make sure we get it in. Your thoughts on football this past season? 8-5. Obviously, it was a very rough start, and then the huge surge there in the second half. Disappointing outcome, obviously, against LSU, but I think we saw like a bad start kind of doom things, and then a bad play or two in the second half. But 8-5. All the pressure heading into this season. How do you feel like Dave Aranda handled that? How do you feel like the football program, performed? And what did you think about the season?
Yeah, I think that, candidly, the first 6 games weren't a lot of fun. But I think what was interesting, and it sounds cliche, but I don't think there was anybody in the Fudge Development Center, anybody in the administrative offices that didn't think we could still have a really good year. And, confidence is a powerful thing. And I think that game in particular at Texas Tech, in Lubbock, that particular game, I think, catapulted us and really gave us and provided some confidence for the remainder of the year. I thought Dave and the staff were exceptional coming out of the bye weeks. When you think about, that next game and being prepared to play. And again, I thought Dave was, and the staff both were really, easy to be distracted and worried about all other things like, am I going to have a job? Where is my next job? All of those things, right? And they stayed focused on our kids. They stayed focused on our student athletes. They stayed focused on that game that was right before them. And so give Dave a ton of credit. You guys know him. I mean, he was never up and down. He just kept grinding away. I thought, it was really cool. End of year, the Kansas game, we win. Dave walks into the locker room, and our football team gives him a standing ovation. And that's what he means to those young men. And I think you would say it's absolutely a two-way relationship. That's what those young men mean to him. And so something to build on, Craig. Didn't like the LSU game.
Yeah.
I think we all really wanted that one. 3.5 mistakes, a snap over the head, a pick six, a kickoff return, and then, we had a punt return for a TD, if I remember right, that was called back. And so, and those were things that didn't happen, during that 6-game winning streak. So, I also thought Dave evolved as a defensive play caller. Think very much very different than calling defenses against SEC opponents when he was at LSU, and just some of the prolific offenses here in the Big 12. And so really thought that he evolved, and so I'm excited for this upcoming season as well. And I think Jake and the offensive staff did a great job as well. You could see Sawyer gain confidence each and every game, and so again, momentum, and that's what we talked about, right? Candidly, beginning of the year, end of last year, that we needed to see momentum change, and Dave and the staff did a great job doing that.
I've heard people say this. I haven't said this. I maybe even asked you this question at some point last fall, but when football was struggling. But you backed him, Dave, after what was a very difficult 2023. When it was 2-4, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll just be candid. I mean, I'm sitting there really struggling. I'm upset with God. I'm just gonna say it, like, what is going on? We've got a head coach that's everything good about college athletics, and he's a heck of a football coach, right? He's really developed into a tremendous leader. He's respected, his staff respects, and I'm just going, what is, I was upset and going, why? This guy, has what it takes, and by the way, such a great fit for Baylor, and we need more coaches like him in college athletics that are real, genuine, transparent, direct, all of those things. And so yeah, I was probably struggling, but more just upset. Why isn't this working? Because I also thought we did a lot of the right things in the off season, and we hadn't seen that pay dividend right up to that point in time. And so, but never did I think, hey, we're not going to get this. We're not going to get this. In the end, we're not going to get this done. I don't know that I would have predicted 6 in a row, but I thought we were in position to at least win 4 of the last 6. So.
Couple more questions, Paul.
After we spoke to you last year, I got the feeling that there was this sense of, if I have to let this guy go for whatever reason, I'm gonna look at this 5 years from now, and he's gonna have figured it out and win somewhere else. And that, I think, is probably one thing that people don't understand about the athletic director's job is, if you have somebody you really believe in, but it hasn't clicked just yet, the fact that you would have to pull the trigger on that has got to be gut-wrenching, and 6 in a row, that had to be like just a wash of relief on you.
Yeah, no, Paul, you're right, and would have been the last thing in the world I would have ever wanted to do because of who he is, and because I do believe in him as a leader, and as a leader of young men, and as a football coach. I think in college athletics today, the hardest thing to do is be patient. It just is. It just, the pressures from within, the pressures externally. And so, I had a great team around me, led by, President Livingstone. She certainly backed me. Our board backed me, our staff, everybody. And look, I'm thankful and grateful it turned out the way it did, but I'm not surprised that it turned out the way it did. And I'm excited about the future, and I'm excited that Dave's going to be leading the program.
Well, the additions of Paul Gonzalez stealing him away from a conference rival, and Carson Hall too. So Dave's always been able to kind of make decisions based on where he thinks positions need to get better. A lot of people are like, they got Paul Gonzalez. That was huge. And then of course the transfer portal's been good too, with much more to come. Do you know Mason Slotzauer?
I do know Mason. That would be my son-in-law, who is a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, and therefore I'll be rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I bring that up because today I had physical therapy on my...
Oh, no, I wish I would have known.
I had physical therapy for a lower right hip. It's better. I had injections. It's better. And we're going about, he goes, I say, hey, where are you from? Missouri. And then he tells me that's your son-in-law, that he is your son-in-law.
Yeah, he is. He received...
Today and the day we have you in the studio, I had no idea. I had no clue.
Yeah, he received earned his doctorate in PT from Baylor, and is married to my youngest daughter, Noelle. Love Mason. He's a great young man. Almost love him as much as my daughter. I love my daughter more, though.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, man, thanks for your time. I know you got to go. Appreciate your time. And, Craig, anything else for Mack, Paul?
Nope.
We will have you again whenever we do. We'll have more questions. As you know, Brent, thank you for making this available in the studio. It makes it great. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, in studio with us on 365 Sports.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with a Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Zach Gelb, we'll see him. We see him now. We'll see him next week in New Orleans because he has his national show, Infinity Sports Network. Always a great friend of the show. Has been on with us for a long time throughout football season. Eventually, we will have to break up during the spring, but he's with us now. Zach, thanks for your time. So, your thoughts about Dallas, Schottenheimer, the process, and in the end, could they, like, your thoughts about it? Just the overall hiring.
I would have respected Jerry Jones more if he just said, I'm going to coach the team. This is all about drama and power. That's how Jerry runs his organization. That's why the Cowboys for the last 30 years haven't been to a Super Bowl or not even an NFC title game since 1995. I feel bad for Brian Schottenheimer, and I get it. You get the contract, you get the money, and you finally get the opportunity. But this is just a hire that no other team would have it happen. And I think Jerry's now going out of his way to justify the hire because he knows that it wasn't the right hire. But Jerry doesn't operate his organization off of trying to win. It's all about the drama and power. I had one person today, and this is the first time since this was announced on, I believe it was late on Friday. And that's how you know that the Cowboys don't even love it if they're doing a news dump on a Friday.
Yeah.
The only person I heard defend this so far, I had Sean Merriman on, and he talked positively about it. He believes in Brian Schottenheimer. Obviously, he knows Schotty, and he played for Brian Schottenheimer's father, Marty. But yeah, I don't have many positive things to say it, and I don't really crush Brian Schottenheimer, but it's just the way that the Cowboys are run.
Yeah, I don't. I'll just tell you, as a Cowboys fan, Zach, I don't think it's any coach's fault of the last 29 years that the Cowboys don't get to the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter who the coach is.
Yeah,
it really doesn't.
I think Cowboys fans are numb to it, and I think also some of the players are as well. Like McCarthy, I know he didn't want to come on back, and now he's not even going to get a job this year. I don't think that was him really saying no to the Saints. I think it was the Saints saying no to him, and he wanted to break up first before he got rejected. But that should have been a relationship that just didn't end. You know, McCarthy should have been back for 2 more years, 3 more years, whatever, right? Give him a 3-year extension, and then if you're getting rid of him after 1 year, you know, you got to eat the 2 years on the deal. And if you're hiring Brian Schottenheimer, then you should have found a way to get the job done with Mike McCarthy. Now, I'll say this. I'm not a big Kellen Moore fan in terms of him being a head coach. I do think he's going to get the Saints job. But I think it's interesting that Kellen Moore was talked about with the Cowboys. They ended up going with Schottenheimer. I think Kellen Moore, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his as a head coach, has a higher ceiling than Schottenheimer. So it's interesting that Schotty ended up being the choice here.
Zach, you've got the national pulse with your show. What is so far, and again, this is the off week, kind of a buffer period with no game, but what do you feel like is, on a scale of 1 to 10, Philadelphia, Kansas City collision course? Because they seem to be the 2 best teams in football.
A scale 1 to 10 in terms of what?
Interest, excitement. It's an off week. It's a buffer week, so it's kind of hard to, but you feel like this is the game everybody wanted to see?
I think more people wanted to see the Bills. I think people wanted to see Bills-Lions. I know the Lions are out in the divisional round. I think that would have been a little bit more attractive nationally. Now you have the Chiefs, and you either love the Chiefs or you hate the Chiefs. And Philadelphia, I would say, is the best pound-for-pound team in the NFL this season. I think we're still in very much so reactionary mode from conference championship weekend over why the Bills lost and if McDermott's still the right guy and Josh Allen, right? How many times is he going to play great and the Bills can't find a way to win? Why didn't they use James Cook more in that second half, especially later on in that fourth quarter? So I still feel as if this week is, all right, why'd the Bills lose? All right, a little Brady Mahomes talk when it comes with the Chiefs. And then, okay, are you either in or out on the Eagles? Like, would you want to see them win, or would you be okay with seeing the Chiefs win? So I'd say it's like excitement level. I think it's going to be a good game. It was a good game. They met up 2 years ago. But I would say national excitement level about like a 6.5 out of 10.
Zach, what were your thoughts, or are your thoughts coming out of that game in regards to the Bills? I mean, got fortunate there weren't a bunch of turnovers early, got their way into that game, had an opportunity to win it, a big drop. I mean, like, it's just they can't seem to get over that hump. But you're right, there's finger pointing at McDermott or whoever else. Like, when you look at them, what comes to mind for you? Just keep pounding away, or changes need to be made?
So if I was running the team, and they won't do this because the organization, and I know the Pagulas weren't always there, 17 years prior to Sean McDermott getting there, they did not make the playoffs. And then McDermott comes in, all they do is make the playoffs. So sometimes when you're building a house, right, when you're building it from the ground up, the guy that does the foundation, right, puts the windows in and all that stuff, isn't the guy that ends up putting the roof on top of your brand new home. And that's where I think the Bills are at right now. They have an incredible foundation. They're really damn good. And I like McDermott a lot, but I think he's reached his apex with the Buffalo Bills. I know that this won't happen, but if I was the Pagula family, I would say, Bill Belichick, whatever you want, we're bringing you in, and we're trying to capitalize on these next 5 years with Josh Allen and try to get one Super Bowl. Bill could say no because he likes being at UNC, but I think if you can't get Bill, And I said last year, even though I like McDermott as a coach, I would have got a Harbaugh, I would have got Vrabel, Pete Carroll, Belichick when they were all available. Now all those guys aren't available. 3 of them have NFL jobs. Bill obviously has the college job. I would have made that move at least once or twice in the last 2 years, but it seems like I could say it. It doesn't matter, though, because the Bills don't want to see what life is like without Sean McDermott.
This is the same fan base and franchise that had 4 consecutive Super Bowl losses, including the Norwood field goal that was missed. And now this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's excruciating. I mean, at least if you're in the Super Bowl, that's great, but it's got to be excruciating for the fan base.
So one of my best friends, his dad is from Buffalo, season ticket holder, has been through it all with this organization. And I texted my buddy, the day after the game. I go, how's your dad doing? And he goes, surprisingly fine. And I go, uh-oh. I go, is that just because he's used to this or he's in denial? And he goes, I think he's just used to it at this point. And remember, going into this year, I didn't think the Bills were going to be this great team. I thought people, though, set the bar too low and they were going to overachieve. And that's why I thought Buffalo was still going to win the AFC East. And I had Josh Allen winning the MVP going back to the summer. But when you then overachieve and you still lose to Kansas City, after you beat Baltimore the week prior and people thought the Chiefs were vulnerable and you could get them, it's just another reminder, wow, when we're expected to beat them, we don't. When you're not expected to beat them, you don't. They just can't beat them. And remember, Peyton Manning had that problem for a while going up against Brady and Belichick, and then Manning had his moment in 2006. Hand up, I thought this was going to be Josh Allen's Peyton Manning moment, but it ended up not being the case.
So how do the Eagles legitimately get out and far enough in front of the Chiefs that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a chance to come back and win the game?
I don't think any lead is ever safe when you got number 15 on the other sideline, just how you never thought any lead was safe when number 12 Tom Brady was on the other sideline. They have the defense, though. They have the more talented roster, but you look at Kansas City, you have all-time great players and coaches. Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo. So they're never out of a game. But they have the defense to contain the Chiefs. And their offense is as good as any offense in the league because even if you slow down Saquon, you then have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. And Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than when people give him credit for. If the Eagles can't do it, there's no hope for anybody else in the NFL. And here's why. The Bills are 0-4 against them in the playoffs, and they beat them 4 times in the regular season. The Ravens, right, lost to them going back to last year when they had a home AFC championship game. The Niners, right, one of the best rosters in all of football, they had 2 10-point leads. One of those Super Bowls, they were up by 10 with 7.5 to go, and they couldn't win the damn game. And if the Eagles now lose for a second time, and the Bengals haven't made the playoffs in 2 years, who do we turn to for hope? So I've said this. The Eagles, whether you may not like their fan base, whether you may be a curmudgeon fan in the NFC East and you're jealous of their success.
Yeah.
I think they're America's team. They're America's team 2 Sundays from now. They need to get the job done to give the other 31 teams hope that Mahomes is just not always going to win the Super Bowl every year.
Man, where are we right now? This bizarro world of America needing to rally for the Eagles to beat the
I understand Cowboys fans are probably like, get this jackass off the air. He's horrible, blah, blah, blah. But, like, if the Eagles can't do it, we've run out of teams to have hope.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. They don't have the hope to do it right now, but I am a Commanders fan, so I do have that NFC East angle. Obviously not a great showing there against Philly in the NFC Championship game. But, Zach, a lot of reasons to believe about the future. You still, though, you have to take advantage of your opportunities because you can't just say, oh, well, they'll be back in the NFC Championship game because it doesn't work like that. But what is your confidence level that Washington will find their way back in the next few years? And what is your confidence level of the base they've now established in moving forward as an organization?
Yeah, so I look at the Texans and the Packers this year. Now, I appreciate the Texans went all in, but they didn't advance it further. The Packers didn't advance it further. So just because you had really good seasons doesn't mean you're going to be able to take that next step forward next year. Like, in all likelihood, the Commanders probably take a step back next year, and it's not as if they're going to miss the playoffs, in my opinion, or they're going to be this dreadful team. But now the bar is to get to the NFC Championship game and then a Super Bowl. Do I right now think that the Commanders in the NFC Championship game next year, hot take, no, I don't. Right. But if I'm them, I like Adam Peters. I like Dan Quinn. You have a star quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and you don't have that pig in Dan Snyder running the team anymore, and you got Josh Harris. So I would go get another really damn good wide receiver to complement Terry McLaurin and not leave any stone unturned here in this offseason. And if you get back to the NFC Championship game, wonderful. But I think this should be a team that, as long as Jaden Daniels is healthy, you would think they'd be a habitual playoff team for years to come.
Well, I mean, he was so special. We have 3 Redskins, Commanders fans, Craig, me, and Garrett. And it's almost as if we are scared to go outside when they start to do well because a meteor is going to hit us. RG3.
Yes.
And then, but.
Well, you guys are past the Daniel Snyder era. So now you have hope and optimism.
That in itself allows to have some freedom of mind that we don't have an asshole running the franchise.
Whoa, Smokey, I'm impressed.
I'm sorry.
I didn't think we were going to get that potty mouth from you.
No,
that's
I'm
a
sorry.
good job out of Smokey. I got him to say asshole on this show.
Yeah.
And you know what? That asshole
Yeah.
in Daniel Snyder, and I'll clean it up, obviously. I love how that article came out. Oh, he's definitely rooting against the Commanders. No crap. Everyone was rooting against you, Daniel Snyder, for the last 30-something years.
Yeah, it was a mess. So hopefully they can gain from it. It was a great story. It was a fun year. First time in 2 decades. Yeah. You could enjoy
Did Mack Rhoades get that colorful language with you, Smokey? When
No.
he was in the next year?
No, they would have taken away my credential, I think. Yeah.
You know what's funny to me about the article is he spends most of his time in Europe and on his yacht and all that. And there's not one person that's good. What's
no one misses him.
What's the worst country we can send him to in Europe? Where he'll have the least amount of fun.
And think about this. The last 2 years, right? This was the breakout season. But how this guy still feels like he did nothing wrong and there's been no remorse and he was this great owner. Man, I know he has all the money in the world. And when you have all that money, your ego could really go to a different level. But I've never seen an ego in the sports world like Dan Snyder.
We just had Mack on, as you know, and we did with him. He was a college football playoff committee. If they have these meetings, they're obviously sequestered, so to speak, and then they have that TV show, which I think is a waste of time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's too early to start it when they do. If you could ask for one thing from the committee, what would it be? I mentioned transparency, and we kind of I know they can't just have cameras in the room, but why not? What would you want from them in return to help you understand their process?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think there's anything that they could do because unless if you're showing me the meetings, you're never going to make anybody happy. So I would say this. I know that everyone loved 12 teams in the regular season, and I know this is not necessarily the way that you're asking it, but I would like to see it go to 8. I know that it won't. I know it's going to go up from 12. I just think 12 is too many. And let's be real, in the first 2 rounds, we had one good game, and most of the years when it's 4, the semifinal games were absolutely terrible. So I would like to see 8. I don't think we need 12. And I thought we saw a little bit of a watered down product, even though it ended up being 5, 6, 7, 8 that got to the Final Four. And also, if you get a win a conference championship, I don't think you should be guaranteed a bye. You should just be guaranteed a home game. And I would also like the first 2. I know this would never happen because it takes away the bowl games and all the money, but I would like the first 2 rounds to be home, so the teams that get a bye actually got a home game.
I agree with everything you said. I did. Because the automatic qualifiers I'm against, unless you're a conference champion. I know conferences like the SEC and Big Ten want more. I agree with what you said. Get in the field if you win a conference championship, but that doesn't mean you get a first round bye. And I love the on-site games. Just love them. That was a lot of fun, no matter the couple of them that got out of hand. Zach, we'll see you next week in New Orleans, my man. We'll look forward to coming up and saying hi.
You got it. Get the jambalaya and the gumbo ready, my guys.
We are. My God, I can't wait. I just absolutely can't wait. New Orleans, of course, with all the great food. Garrett Ross will be just a blithering mess with all the greatness of the Cajun food and much more in New Orleans. Zach Gelb, appreciate him. Mack Rhoades, appreciate him. Ross Tucker and Manny Navarro. Appreciate all of them for being a part of the show today. We're not done. Andrew's here today. That area is lit up a lot better, obviously, with Mack being there. It looks like it's a bigger room that we're in. Garrett Ross, thank you very much for weaving what you guys and thank you to Craig and Paul. Thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the show.
You're welcome.
And 365 Sports. And those of you in the chat room, those of you who are watching however you are, whether it's the app, Sikkim 365, on Twitter at 365 Sports YT, and, of course, on YouTube, too. This is 365 Sports. All right, listen, there are a bunch of deals going on at Allen Samuels. Ted Teague, the general manager and CEO, what they have still in the month here of January as it continues to count door. I mean, February 1st is what, Saturday? Huge discounts on the Jeep Wagoneers and Grand Wagoneers. One of the wives of a part of the Allen Samuels Holdings, she drives a Wagoneer. And it's an unbelievable SUV. And I ask her, like, I don't see her a lot, maybe once a month or whatever, but I'll say, how do you like this one? And there's always one that she's driving as a part of where she is and who she is. And she just said, I can't explain how amazing these SUVs are. I drove one the last time I went there to see my brothers in Florida, across Florida and back. It's spacious. It's smooth. It is just incredible, the SUV. And right now, 3.9% financing available for 72 months. Also, the Jeep Compass at $25,995. That's where the price starts. Lots of value bundled up in this little car, but one with a lot of great safety features. Active lane management system, full speed, forward collision warning, a blind spot, and cross-path detection. Uconnect 5 radio system, 8.4 touchscreen display, 5-star crash rating system. There's the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, most decorated SUV in history, starting at $35,925 plus tax, title, and license. And the 2025, for the 7th time, Motor Trend Truck of the Year, the Ram 1500, the prestigious award because it is a fantastic truck. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations. Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation. At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
365 Sports taking you up until Paul's Top 5, just around the corner. I have been in and out of the chat room. I asked earlier in the week that when we have a guest on or we have a topic that's going, that we want to hear from you. Like yesterday, we were talking about the Chiefs and the Eagles, and then some of you were giving a prediction or whatever. That's what we want, to be able to, like, say, Barry, Sharice, Kim. I got to say Kim, Texas Tech, Katie, Texas Tech, where they get upset, Paxton, whoever. We want to be able to share your predictions. We can't do it all the time, or your feedback on a guest. But we want that from you. And then sometimes I go in there and you're talking about like something that's not even a part of the show, and I get that too. That's what you have with the chat room. So what would you like? What would you like if you could ask a question, for example, not with Mack, we had plenty for him, but if you wanted a question answered about the college football playoff process, what would you want to know more about, if that's possible for them to answer the question? But the transparency part, I know that they're not going to sit there and put cameras in there, but why not? I think, I'll tell you what, who would start watching it? Me. Otherwise, I could care less about that midweek, Tuesday night, Wednesday, whatever that night is, when they go in and they release the standings. I don't watch that. Haven't watched that since 14.
Well, I mean, I don't think they need to release rankings at all until the end. They can meet all they want to talk about it. I think that's fine. And maybe they feel like if they don't, talk about it and work through it all, then they'll get to the end. But they could honestly, and that may be a question I should have asked Mack, is could you get this done in 3 weeks instead of 6 or 8? Like that?
Well, write it down so next time we have him on, you can
Well,
ask
we
that.
have Rich Clark.
Because
it's not this week, but we're working on getting him on sooner rather than later.
Because outside of taking up a programming slot on ESPN, I don't see what the point is of releasing those rankings.
Guys,
yeah,
the playoff show is just a show.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I don't know what the point is to put a TV program on the air that is something a little bit different to pump up the playoff more.
Mm-hmm.
ESPN knows they don't need to show the very first ones. ESPN knows that like there's no need for it, but it's a TV show, not a playoff only meeting, and that's why we get those early versions of the shows. That's the only reason. It's not because it provides more light on the subject. It's not because it gives us answers that we're looking for. It is merely a television show that they put on earlier than need be to fill the airwaves and to get people talking about the playoff that they spent billions of dollars on. So, the playoff show is not going to go away because it was never designed to be like an actual tool of anything. It was always just a TV show, at least those first couple of weeks. But, I mean, there's not, nothing you can gloss from them. But, I think when I hear, we don't need the playoff, but that is logical and that does make sense, but ESPN wants the playoff show, so we're going to have the playoff show.
Well, like the Super Bowl a week from Sunday, what used to, again, I used to always put an extra, what used to be, it's like a 7-8 hour pregame now, because of features and whatever else. They do that because they can sell it, and it's leading into the game that they're about to broadcast on Sunday evening. Yeah, they're doing it. It's no different than any other show they put up.
I'm all for the suggestion. It's just that they're not going to change it because there's a very simple solution as to why they do it to begin with, and so that's why they won't change it. But, yeah, that would probably be better for just the overall enjoyment, is to not focus on the playoff as early as you do. Although you could argue, and I don't know what the metrics say, that maybe with the expanded playoff, those playoff shows earlier were better because you had more teams that were involved. I don't know. ESPN would have those types of numbers. I would love to have drilled down more on specific subject like BYU, but he can't talk about that because of the NDAs, right? So he couldn't say, well, here's why BYU wasn't looked at like so-and-so was looked at. But that's what I would like to have asked, have been like, hey, in that conversation about them specifically, why did they get why was there so many weeks that went by before you guys finally seemed to say, oh, yeah, and BYU's pretty good too? And I think that would have been great to hear, but he can't talk about it.
Well, in fact, Barry Crawford, I want you to ask Mack the justification for 2-loss SMU being favored over a 2-loss BYU who beat them.
Yes.
Stormy Cyclones. What is the criteria of strength of schedule? Good question.
See, we need to start making a list legitimately and have those questions because clearly people want to hear the answers to them. I don't know when we'll have Mack again, but that's a good question, and that's the kind of stuff that I think you're asking for. But yeah, the schedule was talked about a little bit, and I think he wrapped around back to it when I asked kind of the offseason plans of the Big 12. I almost regretted the way I asked that because I specified football. But, yeah, I do think the schedule and how all that works, it's just like, but what do you do, though? Because you can't say, well, let's put Arizona State. You know, we know they'll be good. No, you don't. You didn't think they'd be good this past year, and they were really good. Mm-hmm. You thought BYU was going to, or Utah was going to be awesome. And by you, I mean most of us. And they sucked, I mean, ultimately. So you can't, like, schedule based on the previous year's results because that's not guaranteed to carry over. And it could still be a terrible schedule because all of a sudden Arizona State plummets and, you know, whatever. But I know Mack was in charge a lot of that. Was he not, like, a year or two ago in charge of the schedule? Wasn't he heavily involved in that?
No, he's been.
I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think these conferences are just so damn big, man. It's just, how do you change that?
I would think the only thing that the Big 12 and the ACC have models, the Big 10 too, models that I like. The SEC scheduling is the problem. The only thing I really have a problem with the Big 12's model is, you know, Farmageddon, like, let's make sure that we put that in that category and let's fix some of those things that we make sure that these are the every year things. But outside of that, I think their math works.
I think the Farmageddon thing must have been a math thing, though, too.
Yeah.
I feel like that must have, like, thrown it for a loop of, like, why not include it?
But also, like, sometimes you have to, and the Big 12 did this when they were North and South. Sometimes you have to say, screw that math.
Yeah.
This is what's better for the league because I'll just tell you, I think the downgrading of the Big 12, the first thing that happened was Oklahoma and Nebraska not playing every year. That really hurt their TV ratings. Especially, there was a time when both those teams in the early part of the Big 12 were both really awesome.
That sounds so stupid in hindsight.
Like, actually, you know, at the early part of the Big 12.
96, 97, 98 was a wasteland for Oklahoma. But it doesn't matter. It's Oklahoma, Nebraska.
Yeah, but like, even still, like, Nebraska is only like 2002, 2003, 2004. Like, those years, Nebraska was still good. I mean, they weren't Nebraska, but they were still really good. So you had really good Oklahoma and really Nebraska teams playing in a rivalry game that people like. You know,
one of the best games in Big 12 history was the one when Oklahoma beat them in 2000, and the next year Crouch threw the reverse pass or whatever, whoever did, to Crouch, Heisman Trophy type moment, even though Nebraska got smothered by Colorado. Those were two huge games outside of what you have with Texas OU.
So that Oklahoma can play, you know, somebody they don't care about every couple of years instead of Nebraska is just dumb. You know, like, there's better ways to do things. So, again, sometimes you have to move outside the math and do some other things, or make the math work. Okay, if that one is, then find another one to put in there that's going to be all the time.
Bobby B., great segment with Mack. Thank you, 365 Sports. That's a super chat and retired stockbroker. Any transparency, the show can make more money. I just wanted to bring up a couple of super chats. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think Nebraska, and thanks, guys. I think Nebraska Oklahoma probably played more than we think looking back on it, but there was like a 3-year stretch in the early 2000s where they didn't play at all, and that shouldn't have been the case. Like, they should have played every single year. Yeah, you shouldn't go 3 years without playing each other when you're in the same league. That's stupid. Benefit of hindsight, you'd change a lot of things about Big 12 decision-making over the years, but, yeah, that particularly looks dumb, especially with the emphasis on big brands these days. You had two of the biggest there, and whether Oklahoma was good or not, or Nebraska was good or not, they should have been playing every single season, like Oklahoma, Texas, like Texas, Texas A&M, like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. That was a whiff.
I'm sorry.
That was a whiff, but, I mean, I think we got here because we were talking about Farmageddon, and now what Farmageddon's going to be like in Ireland to start the year. So that's one. I just have to think that there was a Jinga block, because it didn't sound like they just pumped it into the computer and it came out perfect the first time. It sounded like it took months to get it to actually where it needed to be. And I just figure that Farmageddon must have been like the one Jinga block that if you had happened to pull that, like, everything else just came falling down and didn't make sense. So they just had to give the sacrifice of, like, this is as close as we're going to get to being perfect. we just have to not make Farmageddon and establish. I don't know. That one I felt like should have been lumped in with the others, the Arizona rivalry, Baylor, TCU,
BYU, and Utah.
BYU, Utah, Holy War. I mean, that should have been a part of that. But
that's just here's like when Mack was on, he was discussing, being in a room and discussing collective bargaining or whatever. Of course, that might be something they're talking about a year from now. Get in the room and get it done. But there's too many committees. There's too much political stuff involved. No matter which side of the argument or topic or ideas you like, get in a room and a bunch of grown men or athletes and whoever else, just get some decisions done.
Like what?
With the collective bargaining agreement, revenue sharing.
Yeah, I think
they'll be discussing this in 6 months again.
Right, but I totally agree with you, but it's not just that simple. There's a lot of laws.
I understand there's the laws and all. Just get in a room and figure it out. Let's not be talking about this a year from now.
I agree with you, but I mean, it's just, again, that's what I would say, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work where it's like, you know what, guys? We've had enough. We're going to go figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good luck everybody agreeing on CBAs, which you don't even agree with to begin with, and agreeing on how this works politically and how this works legally and what lawsuits would then be forthcoming. So I don't blame them for not having it done, but I do think there is a lot of BS in between. They could probably cut out some of the noise. There's meetings about meetings, I think is probably what you're referring to, but I don't think that they're not just doing it because they don't want to. I think they really don't truly have the ability to do it without 5 seconds later a lawyer calling them and serving them with papers. And that's the thing that sucks about this sport right now.
Get the lawyers in the room. Get Darren Heitner, who knows everything. Get him in the room and ask him, what about this will you sue us for?
Yeah, I mean, well, easier, shorter answer, what will you not sue us for, Darren Heitner?
Yeah.
I don't think you're dealing with the most, and I'm not saying him specifically, but I don't think the lawyers are the most trustworthy people either, because they're not looking out for the health of the sport. They're looking out for the health of the players. And so there's a lot of selfish people with their hands in a lot of pots, including the athletic leadership. So no one's totally innocent. But yeah, I think we all as fans would love for them to just figure it out, tell us what it looks like on the other side of it, and we can cut out all this other off-season noise. But legally, politically, monetarily, there's just too many barricades, basically.
Kim and Barry talking about my idea of putting cameras in the room with microphones. I don't want it if there's no microphones, and then they're not most likely going to do that, but I think that show would explode. Stormy, Smokey, it's harder than you think. Just look at how slow the government works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, man, it's not as simple as like, we all want this. All right, guys, let's go do it. It's far more tedious than that. You guys can't even agree on the same thing, much less than taking it to presidents and chancellors and governors and attorneys and, I mean, so on, and Congress people. And
well, I do agree with Smokey. Before they even get to the committee, they need to get someone like Tom Mars in the room and go, okay, here's our proposal. Pick
it apart
before we do it. Pick this apart, and then okay, well, we can't do that and can't do that, and then do before you even bring it to anything.
I agree with that.
You need to have the preeminent people do that, because, and look, the NCAA has really good lawyers. The problem is they're hiring these really good lawyers to go in a losing effort. Like they're not going to win. And the lawyers are probably telling them that, but they also like the billable hours. It's like, okay, look, we're here to help you not get slaughtered, but you're going to lose.
But you know what? At some point, even the attorneys, lawyers, whatever, there has got to be a point where there's got to be something that is the magic dust that they know they can't fight.
What about if you don't like what that magic dust actually is? What about that? What if that magic dust is, all right, about 60 of y'all go that way, and 30 of us are going this way, and y'all figure y'all S out.
Yep.
I think there's probably some fear of that. I think you're also having a lot of people who are all living under the same house, even though they have varying degrees of bedrooms and things like that. and a bunch of them want the house to stay intact. And there's some others that probably don't care as much. But I think you're doing everything you can to keep the house from burning down. And it's probably better if maybe you just moved down the block a little bit, and it would make more sense. But so many are holding on to what it is and what it has been that the solution being something that's different is probably pretty scary, because you don't know how, depending on what school you are, you're going to function in that future. So you're trying to hold on to this present that you do know, the devil you do rather than the devil you don't. I think that's probably the case for some schools, like at Baylor, for example, of maybe not knowing what's on the other side of some of those agreements. Or
they are
decisions.
committed to being, no matter how much it takes, in that the room that has those who separate if they ever do. But you are right. There might be a number that they can't. They just we can't do this.
That's great. They can pay players. TV networks don't care about that. The people in charge of ESPN or Fox or whatever don't technically care about that. They don't care if you can be competitive spending the roster. They want what they want. They want the products they want. So, you can have all the money, but if you don't have the invite, it doesn't really matter. So I think there's just more complicated outcomes that you're aware of or wary of that doesn't just have you going, all right, let's go, boom, let's settle this and move on, as much as all of us would like for that to be the case.
Garrett, I sent you a tweet about a general manager who might be on the radar at Notre Dame. Did you get that one?
He's not might. He is. I've heard it from
No.
Yeah. No, he is. It's
Jerry Jones.
No, it's James Blanchard from Texas Tech is the leading candidate to take the general manager job at Notre Dame. I've already heard from one of our Notre Dame buddies asking me about him. And one of the things I think that's funny is our parent company website helped launch James Blanchard's career.
Yeah, sure did.
Because he was a prolific poster. I told this Notre Dame reporter that reached out to me, if they went back and really did it, they could print a book called The James Blanchard Chronicles, Volume 1, and just go on until they probably 4 or 5. He posted a lot.
Yeah, I give him props. He basically went from a message board poster, the brother of a current player, to finding his way to getting the Notre Dame GM job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I respect that hustle and the way he carved out that career for himself and basically created it out of almost nothing, I would say.
Yep.
So I will always respect that grind. And that would be a significant loss for Texas Tech. I mean, I don't think there would be any denying that. As much as you still love a guy like a Brian Nance, which who's to say what he would even do, or anybody else that's involved in that part of the program, James was the guy that when Joey McGuire took that job, a lot of people pointed to as one of those people he was bringing over and going, that's the key to Baylor's success. That guy right there, he's their talent evaluator. He has all the high school connections. And James was very much that in a lot of ways. He wasn't the sole guy running the show like it was probably portrayed maybe sometimes, but he was significantly a part of that, and he was sending them like previous coaching staff's films before he was ever an employee. He was like breaking down film and telling the Brile staff about these guys and the Rule staff, and then I think, was it Rule that eventually brought him on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then he went
but
to
it was all
Carolina with him for a little bit.
It was all message board stuff, basically, and he was the brother of a player, and the player got in trouble and kicked off, but James stuck around and kept posting, and then, got ingratiated, I guess, with Rule, and eventually went to Carolina with them, and then...
and when Joey left, that was one of his first hires.
And then, that's what I said a second ago, was that was like one of the first big guys he decided to bring over to Tech. I think it was the first guy, actually, and there was a lot of excitement about that. So all that to say, like, I admire and respect the hustle and turning... lemons into lemonade. I don't know what his old situation was, but I know he doesn't have time to post on message boards as much anymore, and he's making a hell of a lot more money than whatever he was making back then. So tip of the cap to you, and that would be a loss for Texas Tech, unquestionably about that. Not something you can't recover from, but I think this is kind of a curveball you weren't necessarily expecting that seems sort of out of the blue, because he did seem like a guy that was sort of pegged to be Joey's sort of right-hand guy in so many ways for the foreseeable future. So, that's definitely interesting news if that follows through.
Now, think about it. Everybody, if you're a fan of college football, I don't know if I get on many Nebraska. I get on a website called Husker Max. It's not there's a board, message board, Sikkim 365. Of course, we have the premium section, which is amazing, and others that you have fan bases of. That he was just like, whoever. and he had a certain name that it was his name when he posted, and he was talking about talent, and he's from West Orange Stark, and then became a part of that websites, and rose through the ranks. He's one of the 5 guys making $700,000 or more as a GM of a college program.
Well, I'm sure
now headed north, which is out of that area where he's been, but talent acquisition is talent acquison.
I would think he might be above 7 figures with this move.
Yeah, I would think. I would think so. Yeah.
And hey, here's something great for any of those people out there watching or listening. If you found yourself getting into squabbles over recruits or storylines about a team on a message board, you too can now see that there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All those fights on bearwhatever.com, like you can turn that into, with the proper hustle and grind, the Notre Dame general manager position. That's inspiring for a lot of message board posters out there, because that's basically what James did. That's basically what he did, was he watched film, suggested guys, made connections, and then, took off with it. So congrats to him. But yeah, that is inspiring for the message boards folks in some ways.
Yep, no question. And so we'll see what happens with that. Andrew, thank you for being here. I can actually see you now. The lighting has changed, so we could light up Mack Rhoades. Also, Garrett Ross, as I mentioned. Levi is, I tell you what, he wrote a nice story about Sawyer Robertson the other day. I don't know if you haven't been inside Sick on 365 Premium, he did that. Tomorrow, we're going to hear from one of the great stories at Baylor football this past year, and really since he walked on, James Cameron, the receiver, who became a star for them. He's going to join us
directed
tomorrow.
Titanic as well.
Yeah, he did.
And Avatar and a lot of other shows.
Yeah, and he did. And he'll be a part of the show tomorrow.
You don't get it, do you?
James Cameron, the producer.
Yes, that's who you said is joining us
He
tomorrow.
also
He's a director, actually.
He also invented.
I said James Cameron. Josh Cameron.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He also invented a submarine.
Yeah.
Like that goes down, like submersible.
For Titanic.
For Titanic.
Big part of the reason.
Yeah.
Titanic had a submarine?
No. He invented one to go, like he pioneered one to help go down and look at it, so he could get better camera shots.
What, are you looking for a Hunt for Red October or something like that?
No, he's like trying to
normal conversation.
Yeah, he's trying to have that. No, it's pretty cool. Also, if you guys are ever in Seattle, and I don't know why you would be, Craig would dig Seattle quite a bit.
I need to get there.
It's awesome.
Yeah. They have the Sci-Fi and Grunge Museum, which is together. One of the things you can do at the Sci-Fi Museum, and I'm not a fan of the Avatar films. I don't think they're that good. But the technology is amazing. You can put on and make you an avatar yourself.
That's cool, yeah.
There. So
I'm with you. I've never seen more than 5 minutes of one. I have no desire to. It's nothing against it. I don't care. I just don't care at all. So I've never watched them, but I mean, obviously they've been groundbreaking in a lot of ways with effects, and he's always been that way. The submersible that popped like a balloon a couple years ago, that was not James Cameron. James Cameron would have said no to that. He was actually doing it the right way. And
did you ever see the 60 Minutes thing on the submersible? The guy who built it and all that?
Is that the one that crashed and burned?
Yeah.
Oh,
so they did a
balloon.
They did before that. 60 Minutes did a story on him before all that happened, and he was showing how he did it, and it was one of those things where you ever see a movie where a guy makes a rocket ship in his garage, and then it works, but that's the thing of Hollywood. He had literally he controlled it with a PlayStation controller.
It was I'm pretty sure it was a knockoff version of a PlayStation
PlayStation controller. And so here's the thing. If I'm paying $1 million to this a-hole to take me down to the Titanic, and I say, hey, how does this thing work? And he's like, oh, you see this thing I got? It's a knockoff PlayStation controller. I'll be like, give me my money back.
What if he gave you $1 million?
To go in the submersible? No.
Say, you know how unbelievably scared I am of claustrophobia.
If he gave me $1 million, what good is that $1 million going to do me when I'm
your
crushed
relatives could get it.
to dust? Yeah, so, no.
Your relatives could get it.
Yeah.
Garrett, would you go into a submersible at all? I could get into a submarine. Could you get in a submarine
first off, I'm too tall. I would hit my head on everything.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to make.
No, I'm not. I'm too claustrophobic. I'm not getting on a boat. I don't want to be out in the water.
Yeah,
Hell
the thing about the submersible was I don't think you could stand up all the way in it, which that's a no-go for me. I need to be able to stretch my legs and feel like I'm able to maneuver around. That was a whole mess. Thanks to you mispronouncing Josh Cameron's name, here we are talking about Titanic submersible.
Well, I was checking to see if you guys would catch me.
I do like this fact about submarines. Garrett mentioned he's too tall. It's where people that are my height can be badasses in the military.
Yeah, there you go.
Really, like
you know, there's things about height for pilots, and of course in the Navy, and of course the submarines and ships are different now.
Hey, Maverick's not tall.
No, Tom Cruise is a midget. Like he's basically what is he, 5'4"?
I'd say he's probably like 5'7".
He's like my height, 5'7".
Yeah.
Probably wears some lifts.
We have many times. We've been inside the USS Alabama that's off the coast in Mobile, and it's so cool walking around in that battleship. It's so cool, and you can imagine now with the technology and how they can build things now that makes it even more amazing. So tomorrow, of course, we're back on at 3. We're not done. Paul's Top 5 is coming up next.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for great customer service, great repair, great deals on whatever it is you're looking to get into, whether it's a car, truck, or an SUV. Richard Carr has great deals and great options for you. And the New Year, New Ride Savings events continuing on, although probably getting pretty close to the end at this point. So take advantage in these next few days while you can, as all 2024 cars and trucks are priced to move. And you can bring in your trade and make them an offer on dozens of new 2024 trucks and SUVs on the lot as well to get into one of those price-to-move 2024 cars and trucks and unload the vehicle that you've been in. But, hey, if you don't have a trade-in, you're just wanting to get into a new or pre-owned vehicle, they can accommodate you whatever you're bringing in, whatever you're looking to do. And if you want to get into a car and driver's editor's choice, they've got the all-new Buick Envista in stock right now at Richard Carr, starting under $24,795. So, again, a car and driver's editor's choice, the all-new Buick Envista under $25K, just one of the many offers they have on the lot. They also have up to $11,000 in savings on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT with a qualified trade-in. So, whatever make, model, variety you're looking for, a lot of cars on the lot right now, with thousands of dollars in savings with or without a trade-in. So get your year started right in a new ride or a pre-owned ride at the New Year, New Ride Savings event, but especially those new rides at the New Year, New Ride Savings event. Locally owned, locally run. Richard Carr has been a part of this community for over 40 years, and doing business in Waco with a dealership who gives back to Baylor and the Waco community will make you feel twice as nice about getting into a new ride. Deal with the people you can count on over at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Looking for a wheeled cooler, this is the Arctic 52-quart ultralight wheeled cooler. I hauled it on a deck, I hauled it downstairs, upstairs, grass, gravel, sandy road, mud puddles, the whole bit. And I gotta say, it is pretty darn tough. I really do like the wheels and the tow handle. It's easy to hold on to, even when full. It made it 6 full days with ice present, still keeping cool enough temperatures to keep drinks cold. This is a great cooler. And if you're looking for a new wheeled cooler that tows really nicely, this is a great option.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
There are hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's Home Sleep Test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, the second to last day of the That Dude Awards. We will start a new theme on Friday, but just a couple to get to and some people who have not been awarded yet. I feel like I need to go through. It is award season, after all. Number 5, the inevitable dude, Cam Skattebo. Ask any team that played him over his college career. This dude inevitably will wreck you. You can contain him for a little bit. Texas thought they kind of had him, right? They thought they had him. And then eventually, just over and over again, whether it's throwing a pass or running or catching, it's ridiculous what he does. I cannot wait to see him in the NFL. I think he's going to be a really fun player to watch there. And he was probably my favorite player in all of college football this year. It's a tie between him and Ashton Jeanty, but Cam Skattebo is inevitable. He's Thanos. Whatever is going to happen in an Arizona State game, it is going to happen because of Cam Skattebo, or it was, now that he's on to the next level. He was absolutely next level fantastic. And my favorite dude of the year, although he's not going to be in the final dudes, that's tomorrow. Number 4, the next big deal dude, that's Marcus Freeman. Look, if you don't think that this vibe is contagious, that what he's got going on at Notre Dame is not going to last, I beg to differ. I think that you're wrong. He is a very exciting young coach. I hope he stays there for a long time. And look, the one job he would probably take outside the NFL would be Ohio State. And guess what? Their coach just won the national championship. Yes, by beating him. But there is something different about Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman as it was to the previous head coaches between Lou Holtz and Marcus Freeman. It's just different. You feel that vibe, a little bit of that Lou Holtz vibe of we're Notre Dame and you're not, which I don't think they really had under Brian Kelly or Bob Davie or Tyrone Willingham or anybody else, right? They just didn't have it. Now I think they do, and Marcus Freeman is the reason for that. Number 3, the Savior Award goes to DJ Lagway. And again, it pains me to say this about the Florida Gators, but in the SEC right now, there is no program that is on the recruiting spike more than the Gators. It's not even close. Alabama's trying to find its way with Kalen DeBoer. Georgia's still Georgia, so they're still going to operate above, everybody else. Tennessee's still exciting, but as far as 1 year to the next, the recruiting excitement because of this guy right here is ridiculous. They are pulling big-time recruits. Billy Napier's getting people he never would have gotten before because now they've seen DJ Lagway play. And DJ Lagway playing is what saved Billy Napier's job. If DJ Lagway does not play this year, if he's just in spot duty and is Graham Mertz all year long, Billy Napier is fired. That would have happened. DJ Lagway, that's the reason Billy Napier has a job. Number 2, the ain't dead yet dude, Dave Aranda. All but fired at 2-4 in many people's minds. late in the year. Then what happens? Rattles off 6 straight, 8-4 to end the regular season. Yes, lost to LSU in the bowl game. A very motivated LSU team, by the way, Garrett. They were pretty locked in.
They were ready for that game.
That day. But he was fired. It was done. Everything was going to be over. The Baylor was going to be starting again. Nope. He did exactly what he needed to do. All the moves he made worked out for them. They got better offense. They got better on defense. They found their quarterback. They found playmakers. Everything worked out. So Dave Aranda, hottest seat you could imagine going into the year. His seat is frozen now. Not hot at all. Absolutely frozen. Exactly where he needs to be. And he's hopefully figured out going into the future, because it certainly looks like he has. And number 1, the back-to-basics dude, goes to Mike Elko. Garrett, I am sorry about this gif.
Yeah, thanks, man.
But, I mean, look, he's so excited. A&M's problem under Kevin Sumlin and Jimbo Fisher was that they were trying to be something that they're not. Constantly. That's not who they are. You have to be who you are. Mike Elko is in the R.C. Slocum, Emory Bellard, Jackie Sherrill, Gene Stallings mold. He knows what Texas A&M's about. Kevin Sumlin and Jimbo Fisher just didn't really get it. And I can crap all over Jimbo Fisher all day long for a lot of different things. But I think part of it is he just didn't get it. He tried to instill too much flash in a place that's very, at least down to earthish. You know, their roots are an all-male, tough guy military school. They're not your typical SEC team. So don't treat them that way. Get the talent you can get, which the talent he got was tremendous, and you saw Mike Elko benefit from that tremendously. But build a style that works for who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. Try to be you, and that's what Mike Elko did at Texas A&M, and I expect success to be on the rise under Elko in the years to come in Aggieland. That's going to do it. This is the top 5. This is the goodbye. See you later.
All right, thank you, Paul, very much. We're back again tomorrow, triple option at 1, and we'll be on together at 3. Somebody in the chat room said I offended them because I said that, what did I say about, what's
5'7" midget, yeah.
I said 5'4".
Yeah, even still.
I think, again, I'm not making fun of people's physical disorders because I have some. But,
I mean, being 5'7" is a physical disorder. I mean,
just end the show
make me love myself even less. Physical disorder. Yeah. Like you're 6'6". I mean, come on.
I'm 5'10" and a half to make me feel like I'm 5'11". Andrew, thanks for being in the studio. Garrett, you're the best on weaving us throughout. God knows what we do. And then Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, thanks to our amazing sponsors every day that allow us to be in this studio. And thanks to you who are the ones that watch us. And yes, you can contact those sponsors now and make sure you take care of them and what they do with their business. I'm David Smoak. Back at it again tomorrow. 365 Sports Tonight, 10:30 on the CW. Have a great night.